The 6-hour countdown leaves no room for retreat, and the struggle around Qianye Ying'er reaches its cruelest turn. Victory does not bring joy, only a colder form of control. In Heaven-Defying Sovereign Part 71, Qianye Ying'er faces a slave imprint that will bind her dignity for 1,000 years, while Xia Qingyue watches without expression. What should have ended as punishment becomes another weapon in a war of pride, power, and survival. Very well, Xia Qingyue nodded indifferently. Xia Qingyue was the one avenging herself, and she was also the victor, yet she showed no expression of joy or excitement. Qianye Ying'er was facing the extremely cruel slave imprint, something that would enslave her for 1,000 years and wipe out her entire lifetime's worth of dignity. Yet she was strangely calm and did not feel any sadness or anger. The eternal heaven god emperor, who had been silent throughout, observed these two people closely. Even though he had lived for tens of thousands of years, this was the first time he had so clearly realized that women were often far more terrifying than men. No, they were far more than just terrifying. This was especially true for Xia Qingyue, this moon god emperor who had just taken her position 3 years ago, who he had only met a few times. His image of her and his respect for her had just undergone an earth-shattering change. Eternal heaven god emperor, Xia Qingyue said. When Yunqi plants the slave imprint on her, this king will have to trouble you with helping me to greatly suppress her profound energy, so as to prevent her from suddenly attacking Yunqi during this process. Qianye Ying'er coldly smiled. Xia Qingyue, you underestimate me far too much. You are the one who is unworthy of this king's trust, Xia Qingyue said sarcastically. Brahma monarch goddess, if this is truly what you have decided on and you won't go back on your word, then we shall proceed with what the moon god emperor has said. The eternal heaven god emperor calmly replied. When the slave imprint was being planted, both people involved had to be in extremely close proximity to one another. So if Qianye Ying'er were to have any strange ideas at that moment, she could kill Yunqi in a single instant. But he would definitely not allow such a possibility to exist. All right. Qianye Ying'er did not resist, and neither was she angry. She simply gave a chilling smirk, and no one knew if she was laughing at Xia Qingyue or herself. Come, everything will go according to your wishes. She languidly opened her arms, withdrawing all the profound energy surrounding her body. She was already caught in a dead end. Xia Qingyue had also already agreed to her conditions and reduced her servitude from 3 to 1,000 years, so this conclusion was already much better than what she had anticipated. Xia Qingyue looked as if she had given in on the surface, but actually she had silently cut off all Qianye Ying'er's thoughts of retreating. Xia Qingyue's figure blurred, instantly appearing beside Qianye Ying'er the next moment. She stretched out her palm, and without touching her, she released a ray of purple light that pressed down on Qianye Ying'er's body. After a short pause, it entered Qianye Ying'er's body and directly suppressed her profound veins. Qianye Ying'er did indeed not resist. The eternal heaven god emperor stepped forward and stood beside Qianye Ying'er. A ray white light overflowed and also pressed on Qianye Ying'er's profound veins. With the powers of 2 great god emperors pressing on her profound veins, even if she were Qianye Ying'er, there was no hope for escape. Brahma monarch goddess, even though you brought all of this upon yourself, and even though this old one is unable to sympathize with you, the fact that you are able to go to such an extent for your royal father, despite your temperament, has truly opened this old one's eyes. The eternal heaven god emperor said in a voice that was somewhat moved. Yunqi, come over here, Xia Qingyue said. Yunqi strode out of the profound formation and slowly walked toward Qianye Ying'er until he stood face to face with her. He was about 7.5 feet tall, but he was only half a finger taller than Qianye Ying'er. Furthermore, that invisible spiritual pressure which belonged to the Brahma monarch goddess caused Yunqi, who was used to facing Mu Xuanian and Xia Qingyue, to feel a deep sense of suffocation and oppression. Yunqi, Qianye Ying'er said in a low and deep voice. Yunqi originally thought that she wanted to scold him harshly due to her extreme humiliation, but he instead heard her say these words slowly. This slave imprint is repayment for the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, so this can be considered measure for measure. But you had better be careful of that woman beside you. When she is good to you, she can offer me to you as a slave without any hesitation. But if there ever comes a day where she wants to harm you, then even having 10 lives would not be enough. Well said. I hope that your future master will remember these words for a long time, Xia Qingyue said indifferently as she looked at Yunqi. Let's begin. You won't refuse this, will you? Refuse. Only if Yunqi's head had been kicked by a donkey. But the person before him was Qianye Ying'er. She was the Brahma monarch goddess, the #1 goddess in the eastern region who was held in the same regard as Shenzai. Her background, status, strength, cunning, and means, everything about her was top-notch. Just her charm and looks alone made Jasmine's older brother, Zissou, willing to die for her. It was also enough to make the #1 god emperor in the southern region to fall head over heels for her. At the same time, Qianye Ying'er was also the one person who frightened him the most. She was the person who had left the darkest shadow in his heart. And he was actually going to plant the slave imprint on such a person and have her as his personal slave for the next 1,000 years. She would have to listen to his every command, and she would not be able to defy him at all. It would absolutely be a lie to say that he was not excited at this prospect. In fact, anyone in this world who was faced with this situation would be assaulted by feelings of boundless fantasy and surreality, let alone Qianye. They would feel that even their most bizarre dreams would not be as ridiculous as this. Qianye stretched his arm out wordlessly. He practically could not say anything. His palm stretched out stiffly as he placed it on Qianye Ying'er's forehead, dangerously close to her golden eye mask. He had never seen Qianye Ying'er's true countenance before. At the same time, he had some suspicions. Could there really be anyone in this world whose looks could compare with Shen's eyes? "What are you still hesitating for?" Xia Qingyue's indifferent words brought Qianye back from his stupor. He gently inhaled as the slave imprint was formed swiftly, entering directly into the depths of Qianye Ying'er's soul. That eye mask prevented him from seeing the turmoil in Qianye Ying'er's eyes. But her lips that were inconceivably beautiful in both shape and color, were trembling slightly. The instant that the slave imprint formed by Qianye infringed her soul, Qianye Ying'er's body shook slightly, and the slave imprint collapsed and scattered. "Qianye Ying'er," Xia Qingyue slowly and indifferently said, "if you are regretting this king will immediately let you go back and collect your royal father's body." The eternal heaven god emperor looked away and did not say a word as an unprecedentedly complex feeling arose in his heart. "Spare me your nonsense," Qianye Ying'er spat coldly. She gritted her teeth lightly and slowly closed her eyes. Xia Qingyue hinted at Qianye with her gaze, and he immediately changed his hand gestures, swiftly forming a new slave imprint which once again invaded Qianye Ying'er's soul. This time, the invasion of the slave imprint was not obstructed at all. Only Qianye Ying'er's pale neck and her slightly exposed countenance gave a slight tremble. The slave imprint entered Qianye Ying'er's soul and was deeply engraved in the depths of her soul unless Qianye willingly retracted it or her soul completely shattered. There was no chance of removing it. It was done. Qianye could sense the slave imprint that he had created deeply engrave itself in Qianye Ying'er's soul. This sort of special soul bond was incomparably clear. Qianye's palm continued to hover in midair, and it remained there for a very long time. A dazzled look had also appeared in his eyes, and it did not fade away until a long while later. Because this surreal feeling was simply far too intense. Xia Qingyue retracted her palm, and the purple light faded away. At the same time, the eternal heaven god emperor had also retracted his powers. Qianye Ying'er, who was no longer suppressed, just stood still. At this very moment, if she wished to, just a small flick of her fingers would completely obliterate Qianye, who was standing right in front of her. But Xia Qingyue was not the least bit worried. Because the moment the slave imprint entered her soul, Qianye Ying'er became the last person who would ever hurt Qianye in this world. On the contrary, whoever dared to hurt a strand of his hair, no matter who it was, would become her greatest enemy. Sigh. The eternal heaven god emperor let out a long sigh. He had actually silently agreed to, witnessed, and helped to form the slave imprint. It was obvious that he would have complicated feelings. "Qianye Ying'er, shouldn't you hurry and greet your master?" Xia Qingyue said in a gentle but cold voice. "HMPH." Qianye Ying'er's tone was penetratingly cold. "Xia Qingyue, you still don't have the qualifications to lecture me." She faced Qianye, and instantly, the coldness and hatred toward Xia Qingyue had completely disappeared. She completely restrained her aura, and replaced it with one that was cautious and fearful. She, who had only bowed to Qianye Fanchen and who had also sworn to only ever bow to Qianye Fanchen, was now bowing to Qianye. "Qianye Ying'er, greets master." Her tone held its customary iciness, but the usual arrogance and haughtiness were gone, and whether it was Xia Qingyue or the eternal heaven god emperor, both heard a respect that bordered on piety in her voice. Qianye was lost in a trance when he saw the Brahma monarch goddess kneeling in front of him. How many people in this world had ever seen her kneeling posture? Her long, golden hair gently brushed against the ground and reflected the brightest and most luxurious brilliance in this universe. The body underneath that golden armor was so beautiful that no words could describe it, and no painting could capture it. And it was right now kneeling at his feet in the most humble and respectful manner. She would not even dare to raise her head or stand up before he spoke. Yunqi did not know that even before Qianye Ying'er would only kneel for a short while at most, and not stoop to bow in such a manner. Eternal Heaven God Emperor, in this case, Yunqi now has one more talisman and one less person who would harm him. Even the Brahma monarch God realm would not dare to do any harm to him, and this could be called killing two birds with one stone. Surely you will be able to put your heart at rest now, Xia Qingyue said calmly. Though his feelings were currently complicated, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor agreed and nodded his head. You are right. In this current situation, Yunqi's safety is indeed the most important. Taking a look at the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's complexion, Xia Qingyue comforted him. Planting a slave imprint is indeed an inhumane act, and it must be hard for the Eternal Heaven God Emperor to accept it. But in this case, both are willing parties, and since we have decided to slightly resolve our past debts and hatred, this act only brings about benefits and not harm. Moreover, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor is only a witness and did not participate in it at all. Please don't be too concerned about this matter. Ha ha! The Eternal Heaven God Emperor smiled faintly. Please rest assured, though this old one hates evil people and evil deeds, I am not an overly stubborn man. Since I have agreed to be a witness, I would not have any second thoughts. Moreover, your words are correct. Putting aside other grudges, just going by the sole fact that she planted the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on Yunqi, suffering this consequence, is only fitting for her. Xia Qingyue no longer said anything, and gave the Eternal Heaven God Emperor a small bow. At the same time, Brahma Monarch God Realm. Guju was a special existence in the Brahma Monarch God Realm. Not many people knew of his name, and even fewer people knew of his true background and identity. They only knew that he often accompanied the goddess and was especially valued by the God Emperor. His status in the realm was not inferior to any of the Brahma kings. Like a spirit, Guju arrived at the Brahma Heaven Temple without a sound. He entered the hall without even reporting, and once again, he flashed and appeared in front of Qianye like a spirit. Master, this old servant has something to report. He gave out a low voice which was extremely horrible to listen to. As deadly poison and devilish energy twined around his entire body, Qianye opened his eyes and said slowly, "All of you, leave." All the Brahma kings who were guarding by the side were slightly stunned, but they did not dare to question him. All of the people left the hall, including those Brahma kings that were poisoned. In a short span of time, Qianye and Guju were the only two people left in the hall. Guju stretched out his withered hand, and a golden ray flashed across the hall as the Brahma soul bell appeared in his palm. He presented it to Qianye with incomparable respect. Miss had entrusted this old servant to pass the sacred bell to Master. Qianye complexion was icy and calm, and he actually did not show any signs of shock. He acknowledged those words with an indifferent hum. Then, with a single flick of his fingers, the Brahma soul bell returned to him, disappearing in his palm. After that, he returned to his peaceful state and did not ask anything about why Qianye Ying'er returned the Brahma soul bell through Guju or where she had gone to. Under his huge gray robe, Guju's face, that seemed to be even more withered than an old tree, trembled silently. He, someone who was not usually talkative, asked at this moment, "Master, it seems that you knew in advance that Miss would return it." "Ha ha!" Qianye laughed out loud. Even though it was a very faint laugh, it matched his countenance that had turned greenish-black due to the deadly poison, making it seem exceptionally sinister and terrifying. The Brahma soul bell has been her long-cherished wish and lifetime's goal. If I did not give her a nudge using the Brahma soul bell, how would she save my life so obediently? Guju stood rooted there and remained speechless for a long time. His pupils, that had not been perturbed for a long time, trembled violently in fear. It was only after a long while that he managed to slowly settle down. The slave imprint had been formed. The Brahma monarch goddess had now become Yunqi's slave for 1,000 years due to Xia Qingyue's schemes and her pursuit of vengeance. The lady goddess's profound cultivation is shockingly high. Though it has never been totally revealed before, according to this old one's guess, her cultivation would not be weaker than any Brahma god and isn't even much weaker than the Brahma Heaven God Emperor himself. Furthermore, Even though her current cultivation was built upon her Brahma god divine inheritance, she had obtained the majority of it through her own efforts. The eternal heaven god emperor let out a deep, sorrowful sigh. Qianye Ying'er's innate talent in the profound way and her dedication to it would cause anyone to gasp in amazement. It would be a great blessing for the eastern divine region if she were righteous and pure like Yuan-Chi. It was such a pity. With her at your side protecting you, no one in this world would be able to harm you even if they wanted to, the eternal heaven god emperor said. But you must still remain vigilant. If this matter is leaked out, its consequences will be 1,000,000 times greater than you can imagine. Especially the Southern Sea God Emperor, you must beware of him. It will also be difficult to predict what the reactions of the Brahma monarch God realm will be. Please be assured, Eternal Heaven God Emperor, Xia Qingyue said. Everyone knows that the slave imprint cannot be forced on someone, it can only be formed when one is willing. Also, the world is at peace because of Yuan-Chi. As long as they have not forgotten the name Heaven-Smiting Devil Emperor, what would they be able to do to him? Moreover, even if the Heaven-Smiting Devil Emperor chooses to no longer protect Yuan-Chi with Qianye Ying'er as his most loyal slave, who would dare to approach him? That's right, the slave imprint had already been formed. Even if the Heaven-Smiting Devil Emperor suddenly disappeared from this world, who would dare antagonize Yuan-Chi now that he had Qianye Ying'er as his slave? Harming Yuan-Chi would also mean thoroughly enraging Qianye Ying'er, and who in this universe would truly dare to enrage the Brahma monarch goddess? Even the moon god emperor Yue Wuya, who hated her to the core back then, and star god emperor Xing Jukong, whose son had died because of her, could only obediently restrain themselves in front of her. Moreover, he had the backing of the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the fame of saving the world. He also had the eternal heaven god realm and the moon god realm. And there was also Mu Xunian, and those upper star realms who knew the truth and were vying to curry favor with him. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the current Yuan-Chi was the one person who could not be provoked in the eastern divine region. In fact, he was the only person one could least afford to provoke in the entire universe, even more so than all the god emperors of the king realms. The eternal heaven god emperor thought for a bit before he smiled. The moon god emperor is right. Yuan-Chi, this is the first time that this old one has ever helped to create a slave imprint, and this old one is only willing to do it for you. In this case, if you are able to advise the heaven-smiting devil emperor to restrain the devil gods who are about to return, even just 2 or 3, then your achievements would be a blessing for all creation in the current and future eras. At that time, you will deserve to be blessed by the entire world, much less being able to command this old one. Yuan-Chi immediately bowed and said, Senior, your words are too heavy. Since this junior has inherited the strength of the heretic god, all of these things are part of my duty. I thank Senior for coming all the way here to help us today. He. The eternal heaven god emperor gladly nodded his head. If you meet with any difficulty, please come to my eternal heaven any time, and this old one will do his best to help you. He was greatly astonished that he had so easily accepted and even facilitated what had happened today without even feeling much guilt over it. He could not help but smile secretly as he thought, it looks like everything in this world can be accommodated as long as it concerns Yuan-Chi. After all, he is the true God-child Messiah. The 4 words, will do his best, had come out of a god emperor's mouth, and each word was heavier than a mountain. Before Qianye Ying'er, the eternal heaven god emperor himself could already be considered one of Yuan-Chi's protective talismans. However, he was the king of the eternal heaven god realm, so he could not spend too much energy on Yuan-Chi. Meanwhile, Qianye Ying'er would from today onward become Yuan-Chi's strongest and scariest sword and shield, and would always accompany him. It was not just her strength, but also her viciousness and cunning. The slave imprint made the person who was afflicted with it extremely loyal to the person who had planted it. But other than that, it would not change the psychological state or the knowledge of the afflicted person. It was simply akin to engraving the notion that she had to be loyal to Yuan-Chi in her consciousness. In other words, to Yuan-Chi, she would be the most loyal and faithful slave. But to others, she would still be the mighty and terrifying Brahma monarch goddess who should never be provoked. As such, it would be hard for the eternal heaven god emperor to be worried for Yuan-Chi's safety, even if he wanted to. As a witness, I will have to ask the 2 of you to keep your promise, the eternal heaven god emperor reminded them. Of course, Xia Qingyue promised. The eternal heaven god emperor can rest assured. Even though this king hates Qianye Ying'er with a vengeance, since I dared to invite you to come here, I naturally did not have any intention of going back on my word, and I would not put you in a tight spot. Amen. The eternal heaven god emperor smiled slightly and nodded his head. In that case, this old one shall take his leave. I would think that the moon god emperor already has plans on how to face the Brahma monarch god realm from now on. Lion Yue, please respectfully escort the eternal heaven god emperor back to his realm on my behalf, Xia Qingyue said. Yes, with the departure of the eternal heaven god emperor, only Yun Qi, Xia Qingyue, and Qianye Ying'er, who was still kneeling on the ground, were left in the hall. There was an indescribable subtleness in the atmosphere, recalling the last time the three of them were in the same place. Yun Qi and Xia Qingyue were but two small and weak children. They had been completely humiliated and manipulated by Qianye Ying'er, and they did not even have the strength to struggle and retaliate. If Jasmine and Keijai had not arrived then, it would have been impossible to escape from her hands. Be it in the forbidden land of Samsara, in the lower realms, or even when he had returned to the god realm, Yun Qi would tremble with fear whenever the image of Qianye Ying'er flashed across his mind. But now, Qianye Ying'er. Yun Qi looked down at her figure that was overflowing with faint golden light. From today onward, you will still be the Brahma monarch goddess, Qianye Ying'er, in public. But in front of me you will be Slave Ying, understand? Yes. Her head of golden hair bobbed up and down, and her delicate head that was already bent even lower as she said, Slave Ying will obey everything that master says. Xia Qingyue. Very good, you may rise. On the surface, Yun Qi looked serious and cold, his tone was steady and calm. But in reality, his heart was beating at an extremely shocking pace. Looking at her kneeling and bent form and her cold but submissive words, the Brahma monarch goddess truly seemed like an obedient kitten. Yet when he recalled the dark and terrifying shadow she had left in his heart all those years ago, he could not help but grow dazed. Even now, he was still unable to believe that all this was actually real. From now on, am I really able to order this terrifying Eastern region's #1 goddess around however I please? This felt 1,000,000 times more surreal than even killing her with a single slap. Qianye Ying'er complied with his words, rose to her feet, and stood there quietly. Qianye Ying'er, to think that you would willingly become a slave to save your royal father. This is something that truly moves the heavens and the earth. Even if this matter were to get out, no one would believe that the Brahma monarch goddess would ever do something like this. At this moment, Xia Qingyue's tone suddenly turned icy. But you better not be naive enough to think that our grudges will be settled just like that. I only did this because you still have value now, compared to the harm that you brought upon my mother, father, and foster father, the despair that I once felt, and the hatred and gloom I had to live with for all of these years. What you are paying now is only a tiny fraction of that. Qianye Ying'er looked sideways. A golden light instantly flashed in her eyes, and it was as if there were countless sharp golden swords driving through Xia Qingyue's soul. Based on you alone. Who allowed you to speak to Qingyue in that manner? Yun Qi's cold rebuke was still a little weak and timid. The cold light in Qianye Ying'er's eyes instantly faded as she lowered her delicate head and said, Slave Ying knows her mistake. Yun Qi instantly grimaced and shuddered uncontrollably from head to toe. He simply could not describe what this feeling was, and no one else could feel it or describe it either. To be able to plant a slave imprint of the Brahma monarch goddess despite only being a divine king. He was absolutely sure that this was the most outrageous slave imprint in the history of the god realm. Xia Qingyue glanced at him and said, You're actually still nervous when facing a slave who is absolutely loyal to you. I'm not nervous. Yun Qi stretched out his hand and rubbed his forehead. It's just been a bit too stimulating. It wasn't even this exciting when the Brahma soul death-wishing mark had been planted on me back then. I need some time to get used to it. You have 1,000 years to adjust to this, Xia Qingyue said, but for now you should let her go back. It would not be a good thing if she doesn't make it back in time. Yun Qi let out a long sigh and nodded his head. He stretched out his palm and grabbed 9 pills that twinkled with green light before he solemnly told Qianye Ying'er, Slave Ying, these 9 sky poison pellets contains the cleansing power of the sky poison pearl. Give them to your royal father and the 8 Brahma kings who were poisoned, and the sky poison in them will be cleansed. These 9 so-called sky poison pellets truly contain the cleansing power of the sky poison pearl, and they would truly be able to swiftly cleanse the sky poison in the bodies of Qianye Fanchen and the Brahma kings. But essentially, it was just a deception, because the sky poison would only be effective for about 40-odd hours. Based on the number of hours that had already passed, the poison in them would have more or less started to dissipate by the time Qianye Ying'er returned to the Brahma monarch god realm. However, it would certainly be for the best if no one discovered that the sky poison was only effective for 40-odd hours. Otherwise, it would not be as easy to trick others with the same method. Qianye Ying'er stretched out her hand and took them before quickly kneeling on one knee. Her still icy voice contained deep excitement and gratitude as she said, "Slave Ying thanks Master for his favor. With these pills as a medium, the cleansing power will swiftly dissipate. Therefore, should you not want anything to happen to them, you must go back immediately and let them take the pill at the first possible instant. After that, come back obediently, don't tarry for too long." Under normal circumstances, Yunqi would almost never be able to entrap Qianye Ying'er due to how terrifying she was. But the current Qianye Ying'er would never go against a single thing that Yunqi said. She accepted her order respectfully and was about to leave when she heard Xia Qingyue say, "Tell her that she does not need to come back here. Instead, tell her to go straight to the Snow Song Realm to find you." Yunqi widened his eyes. "Are you chasing me away just like that? All that needs to be done has been accomplished. I have also given you the talisman that I promised you. So what other reason would you have to stay here?" Xia Qingyue said indifferently. Hey. It's rare for me to be able to visit the moon god realm, and now that we are finally free of distractions, we should at least nurture our relationship as husband and wife." Xia Qingyue. "Oh, right." Yunqi pointed at Qianye Ying'er and said, "Don't you want to take advantage of this opportunity to vent your rage by beating this woman up violently? I promise you that she won't retaliate." "HMPH, how childish." Xia Qingyue turned her face away and said, "I have just completed the first part of my revenge. I have already made my own plans in regards to how I will proceed in the future, so why should I stoop to this?" "All right then." Since Xia Qingyue put it that way, Yunqi did not insist on it anymore and said to Qianye Ying'er, "After you leave the Brahma monarch god realm, go to the Snow Song realm directly to look for me." Qianye Ying'er departed. She was still the Brahma monarch goddess and outsiders would not be able to see a single change on her. But she had become the Brahma monarch goddess that belonged to Yunqi alone. "Yunqi," Xia Qingyue coldly said the moment Qianye Ying'er departed, "Qianye Ying'er is now your slave. You can order her around, make use of her, vent your anger on her, humiliate her, and ravish her as you please. You can do whatever you want of her. But there is something that you must remember, Yunqi. She is still someone that I must kill. Making her your slave with this scheme of mine does not mean that I don't wish to kill her. Rather, it only means that I can't kill her right now. Whatever happens between the two of you is none of my business. But you definitely must not develop any feelings for her. Even more than that, you definitely must not have any children with her. Understand?" Xia Qingyue said those words with extreme severity, and a deep warning was contained in every word. Yunqi's lips curled up slightly as he said with amusement, "Develop feelings for her or have children with her. Me, Qingyue, I didn't know that you actually knew how to tell jokes." Xia Qingyue was rendered utterly speechless for a moment. After that, she turned around and her voice had unconsciously grown a lot more gentle. "You're always so flippant. Also, there's another thing that you'd better take note of in advance." Xia Qingyue spoke again. Yunqi could only see her back, so he was unable to see the gloomy hatred that flashed in her moon-like eyes. 1,000 years from now, Qianye Ying'er must die by my hands." She was not asking Yunqi for his opinion. She was giving him an order that could not be questioned. "All right," Yunqi agreed without any hesitation. Although she had promised to not order Qianye Ying'er to kill or cripple herself while she was under the slave imprint, Yunqi could distinctly sense that Xia Qingyue had already thought of how to kill her after 1,000 years had passed. She would not hesitate to use any methods, even those that she used to despise and disdain, when it involved the person that she hated the most. "Qingyue," Xia Qingyue faced the front and spoke, "Go and escort Yunqi back to the Snow Song realm personally. Eastern Divine Region, within a vast star region, a small, profound arc that shone with bright moonlight flew swiftly towards the north." The few days since Xia Qingyue had brought him out of the Snow Song realm had truly felt like a dream. And what had brought about this dreamlike feeling had not been the process, but the result. Additionally, his interactions with Xia Qingyue did not shrink the distance between them. It actually seemed to have caused that distance to grow even further. She, the Moon God Emperor, was truly not the previous Xia Qingyue anymore. Yunqi was not alone in the profound arc. A young maiden wearing a faint yellow moon robe stood there quietly. She looked pleasant with her jade face and ruby lips, and she had a gentle and delicate temperament. However, she seemed to be especially nervous, and her delicate head remained deeply bowed. Her hands continuously twisted the cloth band around her robes, and she did not dare to lift her head to look at Yun-Chi. Yun-Chi came back to his senses, and he cast a sideways glance at the young maiden before calling out to her, "Miss Qingyue?" "Ah, ah!" Qingyue trembled as she lifted her delicate head. But it dropped back down in a hurry as she asked in a flustered voice, young master, is there anything that you require?" Yun-Chi could not help but laugh at her actions. He had met Qingyue a few years ago, and she had been especially delicate and timid back then. She, who had been born in the moon god realm, had actually behaved in such a nervous and timid manner when she faced Yun-Chi, a junior profound practitioner who had come from a middle star realm. She had not dared to look at him directly, and she had not even dared to speak loudly to him. Back then, she had been the only personal servant girl of the God Empress. Even if someone only thought about it with the tips of their toes, they would still realize that her power and status had to be extraordinary for her to be the only maidservant of a God Empress. However, given her soft tenderness that was like water and her respectful attitude to all people, even if one had 10 brains, they still would not be able to associate her with a position like Divine Moon Envoy, as gentle as a kitten and as innocent as a baby squirrel. If it were the Yun-Chi 7 or 8 years ago, he most likely would not have been able to resist the urge to bully her. But her true identity was actually the personal Divine Moon Envoy of the Moon God Emperor, a 5th-level Divine Master, just based on her cultivation in the profound way alone. She was even more frightening than Hu Poyun, who had gone through those 3,000 years in the eternal heaven divine realm. In fact, she could kill him over 100 times by just poking him with her pinky. How has Qingyu been over the past few years? Given her situation back then, it must have been very difficult for her when she succeeded the position of Moon God Emperor, right? Yun-Chi asked. Xia Qingyue had no intention of letting Yun-Chi know about these matters, so he could only ask Qingyue. Qingyue replied in a soft voice, Master has worked very hard over the last few years, but it was not difficult for her. Yun-Chi, oh. Master is the most extraordinary person in this world, and Master easily resolved any resistance that she encountered. Although it has only been 3 short years, everyone in the Moon God realm has been brought over by Master's charms, and no one dares to defy her any longer. Jinyue's voice was warm and gentle, but when she spoke, rays of moonlight were reflected in her pupils. It was a kind of pride and respect that originated from deep within her soul. Yun-Chi was stunned for a long time. When he was in the Blue Pole Star, he came into frequent contact with royalty. He was aware that even in a nation that belonged to the lower realms, a long time was needed for a new emperor to gather the hearts of the people after they succeeded the throne. And it was even more difficult for a new emperor to pacify the internal conflict within a country. In the illusory demon realm all those years ago, the little demon empress had many guardian families and royal clans, but they were all dispersed in the end. Meanwhile, Xia Qingyue, given her circumstances back then, it would not be an exaggeration to say that she had to face the entire Moon God realm all by herself. Because other than Yue Wuya, no one else would be able to accept her as the successor of the Moon God Emperor, even though it was Yue Wuya's dying will. As long as someone was willing to lead, the entire realm would immediately erupt in protests. 3 years it was truly unimaginable. She must have killed many people, didn't she? Yun-Chi asked. Jinyue gently nodded her head. As I'd expected, Yun-Chi said as very complicated emotions arose in his heart. Jinyue did not know this, but it was clear to him that even though Xia Qingyue looked cold and indifferent on the outside, she was actually exceptionally soft on the inside. When they had still been in the lower realms, she had never actually taken anyone's life before. I remember that there was a crown prince appointed by imperial order in the Moon God realm, and his name seems to have been Yue Xuange. Since he had the title of crown prince and had accumulated 10,000 years of prestige, he must have gone against Qingyue a lot in the beginning, right? Yun-Chi asked another question. Although he had never seen Yue Xuange before, he had a deep impression of him. Back then, he used his 2 royal brothers to issue Yun-Chi a warning. He was definitely not someone who was virtuous or someone he could get along with. Amen, Jinyue replied in a small voice and gently shook her head. But he did not put up much of a fight. When he rose up in revolt, Master publicly listed out more than 30 serious crimes that were committed by him, which were all backed up by solid evidence. After that, Master personally executed him on the spot and killed anyone who dared to defend him. Yunqi. Yunqi had always known that Xia Qingyue had always carried a deep sense of gratitude and guilt toward Yue Wuya. That was one of the reasons why she had agreed to succeed the position of Moon God Emperor. But Yue Xuange was Yue Wuya's son, and his oldest son at that. She had actually dared to the current her had actually already become so ruthless. Yunqi grew silent, and his expression suddenly turned serious as he said, "Has she been close to any man during these few years? Cough, cough, I was officially married into her family. She was officially married into my family, so it's only natural for me to be concerned about this." This. Jin Yue took a peek at Yunqi before lowering her head immediately. Master always has her two servant girls, big sisters Yao Yue and Lion Yue, by her side, and no man has ever come close to her before. All these years, no man other than young Master Yun has ever entered Master's bedchambers. Amen. Yunqi nodded his head in satisfaction. That's more like it. In the future, if a similar thing happens, you must immediately remind her that she is already someone's wife. Yes, Jin Yue replied very obediently. Jin Yue had agreed without refuting at all, and this greatly surprised Yunqi instead. He looked at the young girl, who was filled with nervousness and unease, and asked, "You seem to be a little afraid of me. Don't tell me that you are like this in front of everyone. You are the personal divine moon envoy of the Moon God Emperor, and your status among the divine moon envoys should be the highest, right?" Jin Yue's delicate head immediately lowered even more after hearing Yunqi's words. It seemed that the cloth band that was tightly twisted around her fingers was about to tear. This servant girl is not a timid person, it's just that I'm too ashamed to face young Master Yun. Amen? Yunqi had an expression of shock on his face and pondered deeply. Why? I don't think I have ever bullied you before, have I? No, it's not the young master's fault, it's... Jin Yue gently bit her lip. Her gentle voice contained timidness and said, "Young master, could it be that you have forgotten the marriage certificate that young master passed to this servant girl 4 years ago? It was because of this servant girl's carelessness that it was snatched away by someone else. As a result, it caused master and young master to fall into the evil hands of the Brahma monarch goddess. Yunqi, everything is this servant girl's fault. It's a good thing that the heavens protect the good, otherwise, this servant girl would never be able to make up for this big mistake even if I were to die 10,000 times." She said that while clutching both hands tightly. Her face turned pale and she was on the verge of tears. During the grand ceremony that was being held in the moon god realm all those years ago, he was extremely surprised when the marriage contract was made known to the public by Xing Jukong. But after recalling this incident, he had concluded that it was most likely the doing of Qianye Ying'er. Qianye Ying'er had made use of this matter to force him and Xia Qingyue into a desperate situation. Meanwhile, this marriage contract had been snatched from the hands of Jin Yue. Thus, she would naturally be filled with tremendous guilt and self-recrimination. Yunqi suddenly understood why Xia Qingyue had purposely asked Jin Yue to escort him back. It turned out that it was so he could help her undo the knot in her heart. It was obvious that this matter had weighed heavily in her heart all these years. However, it was precisely because of her nature that she was able to be Xia Qingyue's personal attendant. "Miss Jin Yue," Yunqi gave a faint smile and said, "I suddenly understand why Qingyue values you so much." "Ah," Jin Yue lifted her head slightly, a faintly shocked expression on her face. "People are always curious, especially women. So anyone else would have been extremely curious about the item that I had intentionally passed to your master back then." Yunqi continued on. "I remember back then, the box that kept the marriage contract was but an ordinary one and there was no profound energy to sealing it away. Given your cultivation, you'd only need to sweep your spiritual perception over it to know what it was without letting anyone know about it. But you didn't do that and didn't even know that it had disappeared. So it goes to show that your spiritual perception did not even intrude in the slightest. This is something that very few people would truly be able to do. If it were me," Yunqi laughed as he shook his head, "I can say that I would definitely not be able to do so. I think that your master has definitely never blamed you over this matter. No one else would blame you for it either. Rather, they would praise and cherish you even more." Jin Yue finally lifted her eyes and she was stunned for a long time. "Qingyue is really fortunate to have someone like you accompanying her. It truly puts one at ease," Yunqi said with a smile. "No," Jin Yue hurriedly shook her head as she said, "it is Jin Yue's fortune to be able to serve master." Qi looked at her before his expression suddenly turned serious and said, Miss Qingyue, if you are ever unhappy being by Qingyue's side, you must remember to look for me. If I have someone like you by my side, I would be laughing even in my sleep. Those words seemed to contain some strange innuendo, causing Jinyue's complexion to turn red as she said softly, This servant girl thanks young master for his good intentions. But this servant girl has already decided to serve master for the rest of her life, and to live and die with master, sharing both honor and disgrace. I will never leave master, no matter that happens. Qi stared at her with widened eyes before he stretched out his hand to rub his chin and said with envy, What sort of brilliant move did Qingyu use on you for you to actually view her in this manner? Amen. It looks like I must ask her for guidance the next time I make a trip to the moon god realm. It will make it so much easier for me to deceive girls in the future. PFFFD? Jinyue hurriedly lifted her hand to cover her mouth, as the red clouds on her jade face swiftly spread to her neck. Ha 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 ha, Qi laughed as well as he gave Jinyue a look that was filled with admiration and said, It's no wonder that you hardly ever laugh. You look so beautiful when you laugh, and that is far too dangerous. Jinyue did not dare to reply. Though she was still nervous, the apprehension and guilt that had plagued her heart had silently disappeared. It was only after a long while that she softly said, Young Master Yun, thank you. Why are you thanking me? Jinyue shook her head. Young Master, you are truly a good person, no wonder. At that moment, she seemed to have recalled something, so she did not continue any further. No wonder what? Qi asked immediately. Jinyue shook her head again. After that, she bit her lip and gathered her courage to speak. Actually, although Master treats young Master very coldly, she is actually very concerned for young Master. It's just that Master is now the Moon God Emperor, and many things are out of her control. Moreover, this servant girl feels that young Master and Master are very well matched, so, I will be cheering for young Master. Qi felt very comforted by what she said, and even the air of melancholy that had been caused by Xia Qingyue had mostly dissipated. He smiled and said, No matter what becomes of her, she can only be my woman for her entire life, unless I initiate the divorce. Oh, right. That applies to you as well since you said yourself that you would serve her your entire life, ha 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 ha. Jinyue flushed red as she bowed her head, not daring to reply. But in her heart, she was not at all repulsed by the frivolous words he said. Although the moon god realm's honor had suffered greatly because of Qi back then, in Jinyue's eyes, he was a person who gave her many good feelings. At least for now, that was what she honestly thought and would say. She even looked forward to the development of the relationship between him and her master. But fate was always so capricious and cruel. She would never have imagined that the next time they would meet, this man, who had helped her to put down the burden she had held in her heart for many years, who caused warm ripples in her heart, would actually already have become an unrelenting enemy. Moon God Realm, the God Emperor's bedchambers. Jinyue was escorting Qi back to the Snow Song Realm, and they were already on their way. Xia Qingyue had already guessed that Qi possessed the darkness profound energy back at the eternal heaven god realm. It was also exposed that Qi possessed the sky poison pearl when the devil emperor returned. Ever since then, a special method of taking revenge on Qianye Ying'er had started to form in her heart. And so she took Qi away the moment he returned. Now everything had gone as she wished. Qianye Ying'er, who was incomparably formidable and sinister, had become Qi's slave for 1,000 years. As long as she did not need to worry about the consequences, she would be able to take Qianye Ying'er's life and completely exact her vengeance any time she wanted to within these 1,000 years. But she clearly had no plans to do so. Although everything was according to her plan, the potency of the sky poison pearl, the manipulation of the dark profound energy, and the prowess of the heaven-smithing devil emperor had all come from Qi. Thus, helping Qi get his revenge for the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, back then was more important. At the same time, she would be able to help him find an extremely powerful talisman. As for herself, she would merely be venting her hatred at most. Xia Qingyue was left alone in her bedchambers. Even though everything had gone smoothly, she could not help but feel restless for some odd reason. She paced back and forth slowly in silence, but suddenly stopped in her tracks when she approached the doors of the hall. She stood there in silence for a short while before slowly turning around. A pitch-black figure silently stood at the spot that she had just stepped across. She had a tall figure, a face full of scars, and a pair of eyes that flickered with black light that seemed to consume all creation with its incomparable darkness. The heaven-smiting devil emperor. Xia Qingyue slowly knelt down and greeted. Moon god Emperor Xia Qingyue greets senior devil emperor. Jia Yuan had a cold expression, and her presence made the entire bedchambers incomparably gloomy and silent. She looked at the girl in front of her and said coldly, pretending to borrow this ruler's prowess to scheme against others. Are you not afraid now that you have seen me? Jia Yuan's spiritual perception was extremely great, and she could sense that the girl in front of her was not pretending to tolerate and act bravely. But she was truly not afraid, and that indifference of hers was shocking. It would only be death at most. Why should I be afraid? Xia Qingyue said in a soft voice. Jia Yuan's black eyes narrowed and froze. This was the first time other than Yun Qi that she had taken an interest in a human being. The nine profound, exquisite body, and the heart of snow-glazed glass appearing in one body. This ruler had not seen such a strange creature even in that era, but it appeared in a mortal woman's body in this era that has such turbid and faint aura. This ruler's eyes have been opened. Xia Qingyue. She stretched her arm out toward Xia Qingyue as she said in a freezing voice that could pierce one's heart. Although this ruler loathes the moon god divine power inside of you, as a person, this ruler is very much interested in you. A black light unexpectedly flashed in her palm, and a ball of black energy descended from the sky and enveloped Xia Qingyue. Xia Qingyue immediately felt like she dropped into an ice prison, and her body shivered as she struggled. But Jia Yuan's voice rang out in her heart. If you want your soul to be injured, struggle all you want. Xia Qingyue gradually ceased her struggles, resigned herself to fate, and closed her eyes. A dark aura swiftly swept through her soul. But immediately, this dark aura that had invaded the deepest parts of her soul froze abruptly before disappearing instantly without a trace. Jia Yuan's palm froze in midair while her expression changed drastically, and her pitch-black devilish pupils froze in place for a long time. Xia Qingyue took a step back weakly as she desperately gasped for air. Xia Qingyue was aware that the heaven-smithing devil emperor was reading her memories, but she did not know why she had such a reaction. Xia Qingyue, Jia Yuan shouted her name. This ruler has never seen such a sorrowful fate before in my entire life. Even this ruler, who has experienced the calamity of being banished outside the primal chaos, feels grief for you. Xia Qingyue. The most sorrowful part is that when you finally sensed it, you actually decided to comply with it. The light in Jia Yuan's devilish pupils turned even gloomier. Was it because you felt that you were simply unable to resist it, or... She did not continue speaking as Xia Qingyue stood up straight and said in a low voice, What is Senior speaking of? Qingyue does not understand. Do you really not understand, or is it that you don't wish to understand? Jia Yuan laughed dully. But because of you, this ruler knows a secret that I should not have known, haha. This thing called fate is truly remarkable indeed. Xia Qingyue. A secret that was not supposed to be known. Jia Yuan's words left Xia Qingyue at a complete loss. Jia Yuan turned around and let out a sigh with an unfathomable meaning, just as Xia Qingyue thought she was about to leave. Her tone slowly became gentle as she said, Follow me somewhere. Qingyue escorted Yun Qi down the profound arc once they had reached the Snow Song realm and took a look at the endless snow-white realm. She was momentarily stumped for words and did not blink for a long time. Qingyue, this should be your first time coming to the Snow Song realm, right? Yun Qi said with a smile. Why don't you remain here for a few days to play? After all, Qingyue didn't say when you had to return. Qingyue turned her gaze away and gently shook her head. This servant girl thanks young master for his suggestion. But this servant girl will feel uneasy being away from master for too long. This servant girl takes her leave. I hope that all goes well for young master. Qingyue was a little reluctant to leave, but she still left without any hesitation. Yun Qi was a little envious. She had only left for a short while, but she had already started to feel uneasy. Just how did Xia Qingyue train these servant girls? It is a good thing that I have Xiner by my side, HMPH, so I do not need to be envious. Yun Qi could not help but grin widely whenever he thought of Feng Xiner, who was ever so obedient, lovable, charming, and who always adored him. Although he had only left the Blue Pole Star for a few days, he already very much desired to return. Given the current situation, he would not have to be as cautious about returning to the Blue Pole Star as he used to in the past. He returned to the Divine Ice Phoenix sect and directly entered the Sacred Hall. Only Mu Feixu was in the hall and Mu Xuanian was nowhere in sight. Mu Feixu quietly sat in the hall, like a snow lotus blossoming proudly. The sight was so beautiful that it could take one's breath away, and yet, it was cold enough to pierce one's bones. She was indifferent about Yun Qi's return, and she merely took a slight glance at him before turning her gaze away. "Feixu," Yun Qi took a look at his surroundings and asked, "Where is Master?" "Master is currently cultivating," Mu Feixu said. "You will only able to see her the day after." "Oh," Yun Qi responded before he casually sat down and started to silently digest everything that had happened in the past few days. Too many thoughts flooded his mind, throwing it into a state of disarray, and it was a long while before he could slowly settle down. The return of the Devil Emperor, Jasmine and Qianye, who were in the god realm of absolute beginning, how he should face Jasmine, who had become the evil infant, and what he could do to make the universe accept her. What had happened to Xianxia? The dragon monarch had not found out about that secret, had he? But if Xianxia did not choose to tell him about it, there was no way that the dragon monarch would have known. Also right now, how am I going to explain Qianye Ying'er to Master? Other than these things, there was still a problem that seemed to be bigger than the rest. What present am I going to prepare for Wuxin? Yun Qi never wanted to see the look of great disappointment that she had given him the last time again. Also, he felt much worse when he had broken a promise to her compared to any of the other times he had broken a promise. It was as if he had committed an unforgivable crime that he himself could not pardon. So what present should I give her? Spirit jade, precious treasures, or divine crystals from the god realm? But all those can be bought and are too conventional, a void illusion stone. As he was thinking about it, he unintentionally took the void illusion stone out, but he silently put it away after that. Although it could protect one's life and would be a most suitable gift for Wuxin, it was given to him by Qianye. If Qianye knew that he gave it to Wuxin, she would surely hammer him to death. How about gifting her a weapon? His spiritual perception swept over the sky poison pearl. All of those rare and nice-looking swords had already been eaten up by hunger. The rest of them were not only unsuitable for a girl based on their external appearance, but the current Wuxin would also not be able to control them yet. Perhaps I should make a trip to the moon god realm another day. They should have some intriguing and fantastic things over there, shouldn't they? Or perhaps he could take something from Qianye Ying'er. MNN. That was not being realistic. Qianye Ying'er would most definitely have left all of the good stuff in the Brahma monarch god realm before she went to the moon god realm. There was also a great possibility that she had sealed away all of her memories that were related to any taboo secrets. Although Mu Feixu had remained silent, she would occasionally shoot a quiet glance in Yun Qi's direction. She observed that he would either furrow his brow, grimace, or shake his head from time to time. It was unspeakably strange, as if he was deeply troubled by something. "What are you thinking of?" Her words seemed to slip out unintentionally, and it was too late to take them back. Yun Qi turned toward her and answered, "Before I came back, I promised to bring a present from the god realm for my daughter when I returned home. But I returned home earlier because of the heaven-smithing devil emperor and totally forgot about the matter." Mu Feixu. "So before I return this time, I mustn't forget no matter what. It's just," Yun Qi scratched his head as he said, "what exactly should I get her? This is my first time being a father, so I am really unable to think of what a girl of her age would fancy." While Yun Qi was still struggling, his eyes brightened up suddenly as he looked at Mu Feixu and said, "Oh right, Feixu, you know the god realm better than I do. Do you have any good ideas?" My Feixu's snowy jade face turned away slightly, and she did not directly meet his gaze as she said, "Have you heard of the Eternal Imagery Stone?" "Eternal Imagery Stone?" Yun Qi shook his head. "No, the Eternal Imagery Stone is a type of profound imagery stone which can be used to record an image." Icy rays glimmered in Mu Feixu's beautiful pupils, and her tone was cold and clear as she said, "A regular profound imagery stone has a limited lifespan. Even when a profound image is recorded on the highest grade of profound imagery stone, it will only have a lifespan of 1,000 years. The image will dissipate after 1,000 years, unless it is recorded again before the profound imagery stone crumbles. A regular profound imagery stone also has a small chance of crumbling suddenly, and the recorded image would also disappear." Yun Qi became thoughtful after listening to Mu Feixu's words and said, "From the name Eternal Imagery Stone, could it be that the recorded image would be retained forever?" Mu Feixu nodded slightly. "Humans change every day, especially a girl of her age. Once she has grown up, she can never go back to being a child. The father and daughter relationship between the two of you is so intimate. If you could record an image of the two of you during your current everyday life forever, to her, this would be a wonderful gift." Yun Qi's desire was activated, he thought for a moment, and his eyes lit up immediately before asking, Where can I buy or find this eternal imagery stone? The eternal imagery stone is an ancient artifact that cannot be produced in this era. Thus, they are rare and hard to find. Mu Feixu glanced at him. Given the special traits of an eternal imagery stone, people who got their hands on it were unable to pass it on to others, and thus, obtaining one was incomparably difficult. Yunqi thought for a while and said, "Then I shall make a trip to the heavenly mystery realm." "There is no need," Mu Feixu said. "I just so happen to have one with me." Her jade hand stretched out, and in her palm lay a smooth, round, exquisite white jade. It was different from a regular, profound imagery stone, as it was a strange, snow-white color, and it faintly glimmered with an icy light. It was akin to Mu Feixu's snowy palm, bright, smooth, and pure. As Yunqi looked at it, he could sense a special kind of aura radiating from it. It was an aura that had a hazy feeling of eternity, alien and special, yet it existed solidly in reality. Yunqi was about to ask something, but Mu Feixu had already flicked her jade finger, and a lustrous arc was immediately drawn in the air as the eternal imagery stone softly landed in Yunqi's hands. "I'm giving it to you." After she had finished speaking, she had already closed her eyes and started to concentrate, as if it were just a small matter. A special feeling, mysterious aura, and even containing a faint warmth from Mu Feixu's body, Yunqi's gaze drooped down subconsciously. This is an eternal imagery stone, an item that could record an image forever. "Feixu, this eternal imagery stone is so precious, how can I?" "It is of no use to me," Mu Feixu said. "You saved my life before, consider this as repayment for that." Yunqi pondered for a while before putting the eternal imagery stone away and said with a smile, "All right, I shall keep it then. I'm sure that Wuxin will like it very much." Mu Feixu did not reply, instead she returned to being cold and silent. Although the eternal imagery stone was in essence a kind of high-grade, profound imagery stone, its overly mysterious aura alone proved that it was not just any ordinary item. Thus, it was absolutely true when Mu Feixu said that it was exceedingly rare and that they all came from an ancient era. They could never be produced in the current one. After sensing its aura for a long while, Yunqi put it away carefully. He had not checked the inside of the eternal imagery stone, and so he had overlooked a detail. And that was, when Mu Feixu gave the eternal imagery stone to him, she had not erased any possible images saved inside it. Even though Mu Feixu said she did it to repay the debt she owed him for saving her life, it became a load on Yunqi's mind. Just what could he give her to repay her for such a precious item? It was this sort of matter that worried him the most. At that moment, an unusual fluctuation occurred in a far-off location, and sounds of chaos also rang out in the distance within this calm and silent snow region. Yunqi and Mu Feixu both sensed it at the same time, and it was at that very moment that a series of dull and muffled explosions rang in the air. Even though these explosions had come from extremely far away, they contained an oppressiveness that was so unfathomably great that it deeply alarmed both Yunqi and Mu Feixu. "Someone has forced their way into the Ice Phoenix realm." Yunqi frowned deeply. With the situation at hand, all the king realms were respectful to the Snow Song realm, and the upper star realms could not wait to grovel at our feet, so who would dare to force their way in? Also such a terrifying oppressiveness. Hold on. Could it be, at this moment, a blue image flashed and appeared in front of the two of them as an icy cold yet dreamy figure appeared. "Master," Yunqi and Mu Feixu voiced hurriedly and simultaneously. Clearly, she had been alerted at the first moment. Qianye stared into the distance. Her brows suddenly sank as she softly whispered two cold and icy words, "Qianye." Mu Qianye's soft words proved that the one who had come was indeed Qianye Ying'er. Yunqi could not help but be shocked. When he was in the Moon God realm, he ordered Qianye Ying'er to look for him in the Snow Song realm after she had given the Sky Poison pellet to Qianye Fanchen and settled all of her future matters. But he had not expected her to arrive so quickly. After he gave the order to Qianye Ying'er, he had quickly returned to the Snow Song realm. It had not even been that long since he had arrived, but it seemed that Qianye Ying'er had arrived around the same time as he did. It definitely was not because Yunqi was slow, after all. How slow could a profound arc of the Moon God realm be? Rather, Qianye Ying'er's powers and speed were simply far too terrifying. Back then, she had used her profound strength alone to bodily catch up with the vanishing Moon's celestial palace. Furthermore, Yunqi had casually used the word immediately when he had given her his orders, so it was natural that Qianye Ying'er would be going at full speed the entire time. As a result, She had arrived so quickly that it had even caught Yun-Chi off guard. "Master," Yun-Chi hurriedly stood up and said, "You don't have to worry, she is now." HMPH. Mu-Xunian's chilling tone could penetrate one's bones. With the current situation, even the Brahma monarch god emperor would need to bring gifts when he visits us, but she actually still dares to barge in. I would like to see what she is about to do. Yun-Chi, stay here obediently and don't leave this place until I have ascertained the situation. Fake-Su, watch him. Master, she... No matter how fast Yun-Chi spoke, how could it be compared to the speed of Mu-Xunian's movements? He spoke hurriedly, but Mu-Xunian's figure had already disappeared before his eyes. Yun-Chi immediately felt his scalp turn numb. He no longer had the time to bother about anything else as he rushed out of the hall at his fastest possible speed. It had been completely impossible for Mu Fake-Su to stop him. The air outside the Ice Phoenix realm was icy cold and oppressive. Every single snowflake had been firmly fixed in the air as they faintly trembled. All of the Ice Phoenix Palace masters and elders had mobilized, with Mu Huanji and Mu Bingyan acting as their vanguard. Meanwhile, the person who stood in front of them was a golden figure who radiated a terrifying, oppressive might. During this period of time, countless experts had been vying to visit the Snow Song realm, and even god emperors had visited them personally. They had been extremely shocked at first, but they gradually started to become a little numb to it. However, when facing the sudden arrival of the Brahma monarch goddess, every single one of their scalps had turned numb, and their hands and feet had turned icy as well. Qianye Ying'er's hand stretched out, her palm facing these scum who were blocking her line of sight that was right. In her dictionary, all living things that lived on a middle star realm could only be described with a single word: scum. The slave imprint would only implant the notion to be absolutely obedient to Yun-Chi in her mind. It would not change her temperament, nor would it affect her cognitive abilities. If she was not aware that these people were from the same sect as Master, she would not even have had the patience to face off with them for even this short while. "All of you, get lost." Those 5 short words seemed to be like heaven's mandate that could not be disobeyed. Moreover, the golden light that flickered in her palm caused everyone's hearts to skip a beat. A few of the Ice Phoenix Palace masters involuntarily retreated a few steps as their entire bodies trembled uncontrollably. "Lady Goddess," Mu Huanji spoke as gently as she possibly could, "we have already informed the sect master of your highness' arrival. Please wait for a moment." Qianye Ying'er's golden brows furrowed slightly. The golden light that was flickering in her palm seemed to pierce the deepest parts of everyone's eyes. "To have wasted so much of my time while I am trying to find Master, this crime is unforgivable." BZZ. A dull noise rang out, and a golden light filled the sky. All the elders and palace masters had already been sent flying, as if a huge weight had slammed into them, without even having the time to react or shout. A large gap appeared in the Ice Phoenix realm behind them. Given Qianye Ying'er's exalted status, strength, and style of doing things, she would not blink even if she killed many people from a middle star realm. But this time, the elders and Ice Phoenix Palace masters who were sent flying were only blasted far away. There were no fatalities, and even those who were injured had only suffered minor injuries. It definitely was not because she was being merciful, but because they were from the same sect as Yun-Chi. In the past, her interests were the first priority, no matter what she did. But now she would put Yun-Chi's interests as her top priority. Just as Qianye Ying'er was about to enter into the Ice Phoenix realm, a blue figure arrived, bringing along an icy chill that could freeze the heavens and the earth. It caused her to retreat forcefully, and the gap in the barrier that had just split was also sealed in an instant. "Mu, Xuan, Yin," she growled at the unexpected appearance of a girl's figure. The gaze in golden pupils turned complicated, and she said in a cold voice, "Although you are the master of my master, you cannot afford to be held responsible if you delay me from finding him. Get lost." The tips of Mu Xunian's brows arched slightly. Anyone who heard the word master coming out from the mouth of the Brahma monarch goddess would think that they had heard wrongly. Mu Xunian swept her spiritual perception over her surroundings and found that though everyone had been attacked, none of them were injured. She was extremely astonished and reduced the killing intent in her icy tone. "Brahma monarch goddess, even if it were your father who was visiting, he would still have to be polite and respectful. What are your intentions for barging your way into the Ice Phoenix realm?" "HMPH, as long as I fulfill my master's orders, so what if I exterminate your whole Snow Song realm, let alone barging into this tiny Icy Phoenix realm?" Mu Xunian. To the current Qianye Ying'er, returning to Qianye was her most important mission. She had already reached the limits of her patience as she shouted, "Get lost!" Qianye Ying'er's palm pushed forward lightly, and though it was just a light push, it seemed as if 10,000 stars were falling from heaven. All of the elders and palace masters turned pale from the startling and immense pressure, and shouted from a distance, "Sect Master, be careful!" Qianye seemed to show no fear, and she stretched out her hand as well. An icy light that was the color of sunset instantly flooded the entire realm, but at this moment her icy brow abruptly furrowed. She sensed Qianye's aura, which was approaching at a fast speed. Her jade hand suddenly halted before her hand gestures abruptly changed, as she forcefully shifted from defense to offense as she sought to completely suppress Qianye Ying'er's powers. But at this moment, Qianye's frantic shouts could be heard from far behind them. "Slave Ying, stop!" These three words were shouted so abruptly, and anyone who heard it would be puzzled by it. But Qianye Ying'er turned rigid and completely suppressed the Brahma divine powers that she was about to unleash, risking the chance of injuring herself. At the same moment, she was hit head-on by the ice phoenix energy that Qianye hurriedly released. Qianye Ying'er let out a soft cry and was forced to retreat several meters. She turned pale for an instant but recovered soon after. She would not be easily injured given her strength, but all of the blood and energy in her body would be in chaos for a short while as she had suppressed her powers forcefully and taken a blow from Qianye. She only managed to suppress it after taking a few breaths. "Master, are you injured?" Qianye hurriedly stepped forward and asked anxiously. He only heaved a sigh of relief only after he sensed that Qianye was not harmed. Qianye glanced at him with deep astonishment in her eyes. Qianye turned his head after that and swept his spiritual perception over his surroundings. "Elders, palace masters, is anyone injured?" Bingyun hurriedly said. "We are unharmed." Qianye stepped back immediately. "It's too dangerous here." Qianye shook his head and turned his gaze on Qianye Ying'er without having any time to explain. His expression turned serious and shouted in a stern voice, "Slave Ying, this is my sect, who gave you the permission to be so impudent and strike them." Qianye Ying'er had just calmed her vital energy down when she suddenly heard these words and became alarmed. Slave Ying was too eager to find master, and so, following that, she realized that she should not have tried to explain her actions to her master. She swiftly got down on one knee and bowed her head. "Slave Ying knows her mistake. Please punish me, master." Smash. The sound of eyeballs and jaws smashing on the ground rang out in the originally exceptionally silent snow region. They looked at Qianye, who was glaring at the kneeling Brahma monarch goddess who had bent her head towards him. Hearing the words, "Slave Ying" and "Master" coming from their mouths had made their eyes bulge. Their jaws had also dropped so low that one would be able to shove many Qianyes into their mouths. It was as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. "Email protected, number %. Qianye looked at Qianye and then at Qianye Ying'er, who was kneeling down, her head turning in an extremely slow and stiff manner. "Slave Ying, listen to me," Qianye said in a serious tone. "The Divine Ice Phoenix sect is my sect, so without my orders you must not make any rash moves here. You must not be disrespectful to any of my seniors in my sect. You must obediently obey all the rules here and never violate any of them, understand?" He still felt a little scared as he was giving out orders. Given Qianye Ying'er's outstanding terrifying strength, it would be unknown how many would die here if she misbehaved even just a little bit. "Yes, Slave Ying will obey Master's orders." Qianye Ying'er still knelt on the ground with her head bowed, not daring to stand up. Qianye turned around and said, "Master, this was an oversight of this disciple for not informing you of this matter. It should no longer be a problem." Qianye turned her gaze back to him and silently stared at him without saying a word for a long time. Slap, a loud and clear slap rang out in the quiet air. Huanji touched his face that had been reddened from the slap he had given himself. He felt the burning pain, but this caused him to become even more confused instead. What was going on? Brahma monarch goddess, Qianye, actually. This was the Brahma monarch goddess, the future Brahma heaven god emperor and the person who was publicly recognized as the #1 goddess in the eastern region. Even the king realms did not dare to provoke her, but she was actually kneeling in front of Qianye and calling him Master. Am I dreaming? Have I gone mad, or has the entire universe gone insane? "You planted the slave imprint on her?" Qianye finally spoke. That was the only possibility that she could think of, even if it was the most ridiculous and impossible thing in this universe. "Amen, he." Yun-Chi could not help but let out a satisfied chuckle. The extremely contorted reactions from his surroundings did not seem to be the least bit exaggerated at the mention of him planting the slave imprint on Qianye Ying'er, and he said, "Master is so smart." He suddenly quivered violently after speaking and hurriedly corrected himself. This disciple is saying that Master is wise. He still revered her so, even with the Brahma monarch goddess as his slave. A strange gleam flitted across Qianye's icy eyes before she managed to calm down. So this was Qingyue's reason for taking you with her. She was most aware of just how capable Yun-Chi was, but she definitely did not believe that Yun-Chi had the capability of accomplishing this by himself. "Yes," Yun-Chi replied honestly. "If Master wishes to know, this disciple will inform you of the details." Qianye turned around and said, "Everything is all right, you may all leave." "Ah, yes." Everyone took a long while to react and respond to Qianye's order. Though they managed to recover in the end, the shock still raged about in their hearts like an enormous tidal wave. As they were leaving, they continued to look back and forth at Yun-Chi and the Brahma monarch goddess as their internal organs trembled violently. How many heroes from the god realm could even dream of even stealing a glance at Qianye Ying'er? Even after bitterly pursuing the Brahma monarch goddess for so many years, the #1 god emperor of the southern region had not even managed to lay a single finger on her. Yet she was actually willing to be Yun-Chi's slave. This was surely, no, if news of this got out, it would be the most unbelievable, most incredible, and most ridiculous thing that anyone had ever heard of. The Dragon Queen and Goddess were rumored to be the most dazzling women in the universe, and possessed 60% of the universe's elegance and beauty. The Dragon Queen was the Dragon Monarch's wife, and while the husband of the goddess would not be able to compare to the Dragon Monarch in the eyes of the world, he should at least be someone of a god emperor level. Who would have thought she would belong to Yun-Chi, and was even his slave at that? Putting aside his title as God, Child, Messiah, and other exalted titles, just based on the sole fact that he had obtained the goddess, the world would see Yun-Chi as someone who was on par with the Dragon Monarch. One could well imagine. No, it was unimaginable just how deranged and jealous those god children and god emperors of the king realms would become, based on how much they adored, yearned, and wished to possess the Brahma monarch goddess. "Slave Ying, stand up," Yun-Chi said indifferently, but he did not allow her to follow him. "Stay here and guard this place. You're not allowed to go anywhere without my orders." "Yes." The innate cold majesty and haughtiness contained in Qianye Ying'er's gaze and expression made it so that others were unable to look straight at her or even dare to approach her. But the tone of her reply sounded exceptionally obedient. Yun-Chi explained to Qianye in detail about the process of how they managed to trick Qianye Ying'er when they went back to the sacred hall. Qianye was definitely one of the people that he trusted the most in this whole world, and he would never conceal anything from her. No words could express the throbbing in his heart, especially when he found out from Xia Qingyue that Qianye risked implicating the Snow Song Realm to rescue him from great danger 4 years ago. As Yun-Chi was explaining, Qianye did not interrupt or say anything, but her gaze kept changing, especially when he talked about how Xia Qingyue had so easily guessed that he could control darkness' profound energy. The #1 god emperor and #1 goddess in the eastern region. The two people who were said to be the most terrifying people in the whole eastern region. To think that they would actually be so easily toyed within the palm of her hand. Qianye frowned and said in a low voice, "The heart of snow-glazed glass from the rumors is truly shocking. Qingyue has indeed changed drastically." After thinking for a while, Yun-Chi had still decided to say, "It's so drastic that even I'm a little afraid. She would be the last person in this universe who would hurt you, so what do you have to be afraid of? Take this instance as an example where she undertook all the risks but left all the benefits to you." Qianye seemed to be slightly moved as she said, "You should be glad that she is not your enemy." Yun-Chi, MN. "Although this move will shock the world, it is indeed an extremely great outcome for you," Qianye said unhurriedly. "There is not a more perfect and reassuring protector than the slave imprint in this entire universe. Moreover, Qianye Ying'er's strength can be compared to a god emperor, and you even have the eternal heaven god emperor as a witness. Anyone would be relieved about your safety with her protection." Although Yun-Chi had the protection of the heaven-smithing devil emperor, she would not be able to protect him all the time. It would be easy for many people to harm him if they did not care about the consequences. But Qianye Ying'er, who had the slave imprint planted on her, would be by Yun-Chi's side, and it would be hard for anyone to still feel uneasy. Now you have the Brahma monarch goddess as your slave, as well as the protection of the eternal heaven god realm and moon god realm. Even without the backing of the heaven-smithing devil emperor, you are able to do as you please in the eastern divine region. Qianye let out a soft sigh, and it was hard to decipher her feelings as she said those words. I also have Master, Qianye said immediately. Master is the greatest and most important protector god to me. You always have been. Qianye's icy pupils trembled slightly. As Qianye stared at her continuously and refused to look away, she could sense that he seemed to already know what occurred 4 years ago. Qianye turned around and coldly said, Qianye, I'll say it once more. Mufexu is my only direct disciple. You have already stopped being my disciple a long time ago. Qianye did not reply. Qianye had a complicated gaze in her eyes. Perhaps she herself was still perplexed and at a loss. She sighed gently and said, You should get down to business. The safety of the entire primal chaos rests on the whims of the heaven-smithing devil emperor. Even if it's just for your own sake, you must do your best. This disciple understands, Qianye agreed and continued, but before that, this disciple wants to go somewhere first. Qianye, the god realm of absolute beginning. Qianye took in a breath and softly said, I think I must bring her back. Qianye slightly closed her eyes for a while. But immediately after, instead of stopping him, she spoke with an incomparably composed voice. Ever since the day the Devil Emperor returned, this universe has already become one that is ruled by the devils. It is just that the heaven-smithing Devil Emperor has yet to announce this to the world. Qianye's words were true. All who knew about the return of the heaven-smithing Devil Emperor also knew about this hidden truth. Then the evil infant, who has always been rejected by the entire world, could perhaps be tolerated by the world now. It is also very likely that the world would perhaps have no choice but to accept her. To the both of you, this is a huge opportunity. You should indeed look for her. Qianye's words seemed to be exactly the same as what Xia Qingyue had said. Qianye raised his head and stared blankly at Qianye's back. He was momentarily at a loss for words. The reason why Xia Qingyue had not rejected darkness' profound energy and the evil infant was because she had been born in the lower realms and did not have the deep-rooted knowledge that those from the god realm possessed. But Qianye, she had tolerated his darkness' profound energy, and now, she had even asked him to search for the intolerable evil infant that had terrified the universe. She turned into the evil infant because of you and would definitely not hold back any of her powers for you. If you are able to find her, you would have another power of that level by your side. By then, even if the universe would still not be able to tolerate her existence, you would also become someone that the universe would not dare to provoke. If you want to go, then go now. The god realm of absolute beginning was an extremely dangerous place for Qianye, but not much anxiousness was detected in Qianye's words, as he had the protection of the Brahma monarch goddess. Also, rumor had it that Brahma monarch goddess was the person who was most familiar with the god realm of absolute beginning. She had entered the god realm of absolute beginning countless of times, even more than any of the other god emperors of the eastern region. In the primal chaos dimension, the vanishing moon celestial palace flew swiftly towards the center of the primal chaos. Although it was not at full speed, it would definitely leave most divine masters in the dust. One would at least require the profound strength of a divine sovereign to enter the god realm of absolute beginning. That was right. Even a divine sovereign who could dominate a region in the god realm would only be a door still in the god realm of absolute beginning. Even if it were a divine king entering, he would purely be seeking death. Qianye did not enter to train or to seek opportunities. He only wanted to find Jasmine. Qianye could hardly even wait for a day ever since he found out from Xia Qingyue that she would definitely be at the god realm of absolute beginning. Jasmine, I originally thought that I had lost you forever. Hearing news of you being still alive sounded like the most beautiful celestial music I have ever heard. What evil infant bringing disaster to the universe? As long as you are still alive, everything else is inconsequential. You knew from the start that I had the flame of nirvana that was bestowed to me by the Phoenix Spirit, so you must also know that I am still alive. But you did not search for me or even appear to anyone else in these few years. I know why. No one understands you better than I do in this universe. This time, I will never let you run away, no matter that. The vast space swiftly receded as the god realm of absolute beginning approached closer and closer. In the vanishing moon celestial palace, Qianye Ying'er stood by his side in silence. Her fluttering golden hair caressed the alluring curves of her lower back and buttocks. This could be counted as the first time Yun Qi and Qianye Ying'er were alone together. But the terrifying aura originating from her bloodline and profound veins still made him tremble at times. He would still require a longer time to adjust to his role as the master of a goddess. "Slave Ying," Yun Qi ordered suddenly with a firm and dignified tone, "take off your mask." He had never seen the true appearance of Qianye Ying'er, and it seemed that it had been many years since anyone had seen it also. Many years ago, Qianye Ying'er started and continued to wear a mask to cover her countenance, only revealing a small part of her jade face consisting of her lips and jaw. Because of this, rumors said that her true appearance had brought her too many inconveniences. Another rumor said that it was because Qianye Ying'er felt that men were not fit to look at her appearance. Whatever the reason was, everyone knew that she was the only one who was as equally famous as Xianxia for her appearance. Yun Qi would always be struck by the surreal feeling of falling into a dreamlike fairy realm every time he came face to face with Xianxia. Xianxia's beauty seemed so surreal that it was as if the universe was unworthy to have someone as beautiful as her, and even dreams did not deserve someone like her. Unless it was witnessed personally, one would definitely not be able to believe that a woman could be so beautiful. If they had seen her appearance, no one would be bewildered as to why the dragon monarch was so infatuated with her. Yun Qi would go exceptionally crazy every time she was pressed under his body, so much so that he felt like he would have no regrets even if he died 10,000 times, every time it happened. Xianxia was someone who was that terrifying. Since her beauty seemed to be beyond this world and even beyond dreams themselves, would Qianye Ying'er be able to compare to her? In all honesty, Yun Qi had his doubts. "Yes," Qianye Ying'er softly agreed as she lifted her hand to gently touch the mask. Immediately, her golden mask silently fell into her hands. She had not shown her true appearance to anyone for a very long time, but now her face, which was right in front of Yun Qi, had been fully revealed to him. At this moment, the vanishing moon celestial palace suddenly turned silent because Yun Qi's breathing, heartbeat, and even the blood flowing through his veins had all stopped moving. The bright moonlight that illuminated the surroundings of the vanishing moon celestial palace seemed to darken and turn dim to the point where no one could sense their existence. Yun Qi stared silently and dazedly at her. His body did not move an inch, and his pupils seemed to be thoroughly fixed to a spot as if he had been cursed. Every part of his vision, every part of his soul seemed to be drawn in by a force that he could not resist before he fell into a never-ending abyss. Time seemed to have completely stopped. Bang! It was as if the vanishing moon celestial palace had struck a meteorite as a dull and muffled explosion rang out. Yun Qi narrowed his eyes as he violently jerked his head to the side. He closed his eyes tightly and took coarse breaths. His chest rose and fell heavily, as if he had just experienced a life-and-death battle which had lasted for a few days. "Put your mask on," Yun Qi breathed raggedly and said, "Without my orders, you must never take it off." Beginning. This was the second time that Yun Qi had entered the god realm of absolute beginning. The first was because Qianye Ying'er had forced him to. This time, he had Qianye Ying'er by his side, but her role had changed tremendously. Without the danger and urgency of his previous situation, Yun Qi could peacefully observe this mysterious world. Similar to the first time, that feeling of stepping into antiquity was incomparably clear from the moment he stepped in. A grayish-white world appeared before his eyes, and be it the sky, the ground, or the mountains, they were all the color of ash. Even the air seemed to contain a deep feeling of heaviness and dreary desolation. Yun Qi stood rooted on the spot as he surveyed his surroundings, and he truly felt as if he was completely lost. Xia Qingyue had told him the last time that the ground beneath him was the starting point of the god realm of absolute beginning. Anyone who entered from the entrance at the center of the primal chaos would fall onto this starting ground. It was also the safest place in the entire god realm of absolute beginning. The exit point which led to the primal chaos realm was above this starting point. It was an enormous grayish-white vortex which was the same as the entry point. "Master," Qianye Ying'er said, "the god realm of absolute beginning has countless fierce primordial beasts and evil spirits. If Master wants to explore, you must never leave Slave Ying's side, and you must not go too deep." Even with Qianye Ying'er's strength, he'd be extremely careful if he wanted to explore in depth. It would be exceptionally dangerous for Yun Qi to even enter its borders, given his current strength. "HMPH, I'm not here to gain experience, Yunqi said indifferently as he surveyed his surroundings. Help me look for a safe place that will not be disturbed by outsiders. Yes. Qianye Ying'er had entered the god realm of absolute beginning too many times while searching for opportunities and chasing after the peak of the profound way. Thus, she was especially familiar with the starting point region. As she brought Yunqi along with her, she flitted across the grayish-white world for an hour before landing on a very tall peak. The peak reached the thin clouds, which were all ash-colored. As he stood on the peak and looked at the boundless, grayish-white world around him, a deep feeling of loneliness seemed to assault him. But he was not in the mood to appreciate the sights and feel the aura of the realm. Rather, he slowly raised his left hand, and the dark green cleansing light of the sky poison pearl flashed from his palm. Jasmine, you can surely feel this. You will surely be able to. Master, what are you trying to do? He Ling's voice rang out in his consciousness. He Ling, Yunqi said softly, release the cleansing aura of the sky poison pearl to its greatest extent, the further the better. Huh, He Ling did not understand. Back then, when she was with me, her soul had always resided inside the sky poison pearl. Back then, the poison origin of the sky poison pearl was lost, and thus, it did not have the ability to poison, but it only had the ability to cleanse. During those 8 years, she was constantly immersed in the cleansing aura of the sky poison pearl. Her soul should be incomparably familiar and sensitive to the sky poison pearl's cleansing aura, even if it were just a single distant thread, she would definitely be able to feel it. But, He Ling said, although I have never been here, I have heard of this place from Master Shen Zai before. The god realm of absolute beginning is huge, and it could be even bigger than the primal chaos realm, so no one has ever reached its borders. No matter what, the sky poison pearl's cleansing aura would not be able to spread through such an enormous world. No, Yunqi gave a faint smile. She definitely isn't too far away from me. Master, why do you think so? He Ling asked softly. Because I know her. Yunqi's gaze became slightly hazy and he said, everyone is afraid of her name, be it in the star god realm or outside of it. No one dares to go near her, and even more so, she does not want to get close to others. But I know that she actually is someone who is afraid to be alone. He Ling. She would not like the god realm of absolute beginning because it is a world that is too desolate. Thus, she would not be willing to go too deep in. But more than that, she would be silently observing those at the border region who are practicing to gain experience, to reduce her loneliness, so that she would be able to gather some news outside the realm, especially news about me. That dark, heartless person who also possessed the evil infant devilish energy would actually be afraid of loneliness. Perhaps all those who had come into contact with the heavenly slaughter star god would find those words extremely ridiculous. But Yunqi said it with absolute confidence. Amen, I will try my best to release the cleansing aura as far as I can. Upon sensing Yunqi's chaotic and nervous heartbeat, He Ling said gently, I believe that she will be able to sense it. Even if she cannot sense the cleansing aura, she will definitely be able to sense Master's feelings. Yunqi stretched his fingers, and an image of the sky poison pearl slowly appeared above his palm. Following that, it released the most intense cleansing light it had ever released, and from afar, it looked like a dark green star twinkling in the sky. Yunqi sat on the ground with his legs crossed, but the pounding in his heart could not settle down even after a long time. He had once thought it was goodbye forever. But now there was hope that they could meet again, and perhaps he could see her very soon. But the aura covering every inch of his body trembled uncontrollably now that this feeling was close at hand. Jasmine, I am still alive, you are still alive. I have to find you, please. You must find me too. Time passed by silently, and there was an addition of a long-lasting dark green star that shone in the grayish-white world without falling. The sky poison pearl's cleansing aura would undoubtedly attract ferocious beasts. If Yunqi was alone, he would definitely not dare to do such a thing. But with Qianye Ying'er around, he was not worried at all. The region he was at still belonged to the border zone, and there were no profound beasts that Qianye Ying'er could not handle. Qianye Ying'er had such great strength that whenever a dangerous aura came into the range of her spiritual perception, she had already wiped them out even before they could come close, and not even a single speck of dust had touched Yunqi. Qianye Ying'er's golden figure blurred, and she once again eliminated all dangers before returning to Yunqi's side. At this moment, Yunqi, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. Slave Ying, did you cause the death of Jasmine's older brother, the previous heavenly wolf star god Zisu? Qianye Ying'er replied, Slave Ying did not harm the heavenly wolf star god Zisu, but he did indeed die because of Slave Ying. At present, it was not possible for Qianye Ying'er to lie to him. Yun Qi's brows furrowed slightly at her reply, and he said solemnly, "How on earth did the heavenly wolf star god Zissou die exactly? Explain it to me in detail." "Yes," Qianye Ying'er began to explain. "Back then, Slave Ying had once again entered deeply into the god realm of absolute beginning. At the border of the abyss of nothingness, I unintentionally discovered a concealed secret realm." "The abyss of nothingness?" Yun Qi interrupted her. "What is that place?" Qianye Ying'er explained. "The abyss of nothingness is the most special place in the god realm of absolute beginning, or even perhaps the whole primal chaos realm. It is a deep abyss that is extremely deep and causes everything to return to nothingness. In many records, it was hypothesized to be the core of the god realm of the absolute beginning." "Causes everything to return to nothingness?" Yun Qi furrowed his brows. "It is not known how deep this abyss of nothingness is, but it is covered by a layer of eternal gray fog. Anything that falls into it will disappear completely, be it the living and the dead, including spirits and profound energy poured into it, and even spiritual perception and light." Slave Ying had been to the abyss of nothingness a few times. Given Slave Ying's strength, even if I released all my profound energy, it would disappear in an instant once it came into contact with the abyss of nothingness, and not a single trace of aura was left behind. Even if a divine sovereign or divine master had fallen in, their body, their soul, their powers, their auras would turn into nothing instantly. There are many records in ancient scriptures regarding the abyss of nothingness, but no one could interpret its exact location. It's not just the souls in this era, but even the body and power of a god or devil in primordial times would also return to nothingness instantly when in contact with the abyss of nothingness. "Such a place actually exists in this universe," Yun Qi said in a low voice. "This boundless universe is truly filled with extraordinary things. A world where everything instantly returns to nothingness actually exists." Return to nothingness, nothingness, BZZ. Yun Qi's body shook as if his brain had been hit by something violently and everything turned chaotic. All creation is birthed from nothing, and also returns to nothing. In the midst of the chaos, an incomparably distant sound seemed to ring out. Yun Qi forcefully raised his hand and pressed it to his head. It was only after a long time that his heart finally settled down. "Master, what's wrong?" He regained consciousness, and He Ling's incomparably worried and anxious voice rang out. "I'm all right, it's just that I seem to have suddenly comprehended something." Yun Qi said this while his brows knitted unconsciously. "Just now I must have comprehended something. But why did it suddenly disappear without a trace, and why can't I recall it? What exactly is going on? Continue with what you were saying. So how did Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou die?" Yun Qi said after recovering his train of thought. "Yes." Qianye Ying'er continued her explanation. Slave Ying unintentionally discovered a deeply hidden secret realm at the border of the abyss of nothingness. After entering the secret realm, Slave Ying found a broken piece of a memory. "It was then that I found out that the secret realm was left behind during the ancient era by Heaven-Divine punishing Emperor Mo-Yi before he died. It was used to hide the fragment of the world-defying heaven manual that was in his hands." Yun Qi lifted his head abruptly and said, "You said the world-defying heaven manual." "Yes," Qianye Ying'er continued on. "Before Mo-Yi died of old age, it was his wish to place the fragment of the world-defying heaven manual in his hands into the abyss of nothingness to prevent the future eras from fighting over it and creating disasters. But in the end, on account of it being left behind by the ancestral god, he did not choose to return it to nothingness, but hid it in the secret realm that he personally created." Yun Qi. Mo-Yi fragment of the world-defying heaven manual, left behind by the ancestral god. Hold on. Why are all these consistent with the ancestral divine art that was spoken of by the souls of both the Golden Crow and Ice Phoenix? The secret realm personally created by the Heaven-Divine punishing emperor would not be sensed even by the true gods. But so many eras had passed, and perhaps it had also been affected by the abyss of nothingness, that a slight disorder of space had occurred, and it was thus sensed by Slave Ying. Slave Ying had already found a broken piece of memory that showed the fragment of the world-defying heaven manual. However, there is a barrier in its surroundings that separates me from it. Though countless years had passed and the power of the barrier had diminished greatly, Slave Ying still could not break through it alone. Thus, Slave Ying asked Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou for his help. "Why did you ask him for help?" Yun Qi frowned deeply and said, You have many strong Brahma gods and Brahma kings in the Brahma monarch god realm, but you asked for the help of the heavenly wolf star god from the star god realm. Because he was strong enough, Qianye Ying'er said in a dull tone. But more of it was because that barrier was too dangerous, and if it was forcefully broken, there was a possibility of dying from the serious damage. When comparing the death of a star god to the death of a Brahma king, I chose the first. Yun Qi. There was one other important reason. Although Yun Qi's complexion had changed a few times, Qianye Ying'er's tone and expression remained calm. It was obvious that to her, she had committed no wrong, and it was the correct and most common option to select. She said, he would help Slave Ying to keep this secret, and would not reveal that Slave Ying had obtained anything. The corner of Yun Qi's lips twitched. He gritted his teeth lightly and said, what happened after that? Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou and I broke through the barrier together and had gotten the piece of the world-defying heaven manual just as I had wished. Because he was in the front, he suffered serious injuries when the barrier was broken, and he died not long after returning to the Star God realm, Qianye Ying'er said. Yun Qi knew about this point. It was also the reason why Jasmine hated Qianye Ying'er so much. Before Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou died, did he not tell anyone else that you had obtained the world-defying heaven manual? No, Qianye Ying'er replied apathetically. Yun Qi stood up abruptly and clenched his fists tightly. He looked at Qianye Ying'er's incomparably cold and indifferent expression, and yet, he could not lash out even though he was boiling with anger. He could only lash out madly in his heart. Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou, you were so damn stupid. Just by using a little of your brain, and you would have known that Qianye Ying'er was just using you, and she couldn't even wait for you to die. Not only did you sacrifice your damn life all for her, you actually kept her secret even after she caused your death. What Heavenly Wolf Star God? He was simply a lecherous and hopeless waste who could even give up his life for a woman. Perhaps he had no regrets even in death. It's fine for a waste like you to die, but do you know how much it hurt Jasmine and Keijai? Yun Qi reprimanded severely in his heart for a while. After he caught his breath, he suddenly had an indescribable feeling that the words he used to scold Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou sounded a little familiar. Pooh! Yun Qi violently shook his head. If it weren't for Jasmine, for Master, and the rest of them, I would surely risk my life, but I would not be stupid enough to sacrifice everything for a woman who would obviously just use me and have no regrets. But a reflection of Qianye Ying'er's true face after taking down her mask appeared in his mind. He silently let out a breath of air. Everyone knew that Shenzai and Qianye Ying'er were the Dragon Queen and Goddess. The Dragon Queen and Goddess alone took up 60% of all the beauty and elegance in the universe, leaving only 40% for the rest of the world. Although that saying was an exaggeration, having seen their true countenance, no one would doubt that their existence to men would be their greatest fortune, but also their greatest misfortune. Everyone knew that Shenzai was the Dragon Queen, but Yun Qi was the only one who knew the truth. The monarch of the Dragon Clan and the ruler of the Primal Chaos clearly knew that Shenzai did not and would never fall in love with him. But even under those circumstances, he had never chosen to take a concubine. Even if he did not have any children, even if he was destined to have nothing, he had no regrets over these 100,000 years. Compared to the Dragon Monarch, it was not so hard to accept that Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou was willing to die for Qianye Ying'er. Perhaps, to Heavenly Wolf Star God Zissou, he would instead be gladly used by Qianye Ying'er. At least, Qianye Ying'er would take the initiative to ask him for help and look at him a few more times. Even if death was the price he had to pay, at least they would be alone for a short while in the secret realm. He had been in close proximity with Shenzai and Qianye, so close that the distance between him and one of them had been negative. Shenzai's countenance was as beautiful as a celestial fantasy, and if Qianye's true appearance had to be described by a word, the first word that came to Yun Qi's mind would be abyss. One would be willing to die 1,000 times for her, even if they had to twist and distort their consciousness and souls. Yun Qi cast a sidelong glance at her. It was only when she was wearing her mask again that he dared to look at her directly. Slave Ying, listen, you should know who Jasmine hates the most. After I find her, if she wants to hurt you, humiliate you, or even kill you, you must never run and hide or even retaliate. Do you understand? Yes. Qianye Ying'er's reaction was serene. She was not in the least shocked or surprised at Yun Qi's command. She knew of the relationship between Yun Qi and Jasmine. She knew all the more how much Jasmine hated her. Answer a question for me. Qianye suddenly asked. What exactly is the world-defying heaven manual? Qianye Ying'er serenely replied. According to the ancient records and rumors, the primogenitor of the living things in the primal chaos was the ancestral god. Because her life centralized and connected all auras of life in the primal chaos realm, the birth of other living things would never occur in the primal chaos due to her existence. Because of this, the ancestral god killed herself for the birth of all creation. Before she disappeared, she left part of her memories in 8 life fragments and separated these fragments, making them land in the south and north of the primal chaos. This gave birth to the 4 great creation gods who lead the god race and the 4 great devil emperors who lead the devil race. Qianye's brows furrowed. He had heard all these from the Golden Crow's spirit when he was in the lower realm back then, but he did not interrupt her and continued to listen in silence as he started to think of that strange possibility in his heart. Before the ancestral god disappeared, she left a part of the special god art. All creation originates from the ancestral god. Both the universe as well as the profound way were created by her. Legend has it that the god art left by the ancestral god was the origin of the profound way. However, it was either too intense, or it was perhaps not suitable for it to be cultivated by the people of this world. Though the ancestral god could not bear to destroy it, she still did not pass it down completely. In the end, she split it into 3 parts and scattered them in the primal chaos realm. Meanwhile, this part which came from the special god art of the ancestral god was known as the ancestral divine art by all. I know all this, Qianye continued to ask. What does this have to do with the world-defying heaven manual? Qianye Ying'er explained. The ancestral divine art is recorded using a special kind of divine text of absolute beginning. Only the 4 creation gods and the 4 devil emperors who inherited a portion of the ancestral god's memories would be able to understand the divine text of absolute beginning. Thus, other than the creation gods and the devil emperors, no one has ever known the true name of the ancestral divine art, even in primordial times. It was only when I came into contact with the memory fragment of the heaven-punishing divine emperor that I found out. The ancestral divine art from the legends is actually called the world-defying heaven manual. Qianye was rooted to the spot and did not speak for a long time. Qianye had heard of the name, ancestral divine art, from the Golden Crow's spirit before he came to the god realm. It was split into 3 parts. In the ancient era, there were 2 known parts. One was in the hands of heaven-punishing divine emperor Mo-Yi, and the other with heaven-smiting devil emperor Jia Yuan. Mo-Yi exiled Jia Yuan back then because she had read the ancestral divine art. It was obvious that even Jia Yuan could not resist the temptation of the ancestral divine art. In addition, Qianye was very certain that since ancient times, no one had ever completely read all of the ancestral divine art, because Jia Yuan's peace had been with her when she was exiled out of the primal chaos. And before that, the ancestral divine art had never been completed before. After that incident, only 2 pieces of the ancestral divine art remained. No one knew if Jia Yuan's part of the ancestral divine art was still with her now that she had returned. And the world-defying heaven manual. Back then at the Moon's Slaughter Devil Nest, the Moon's Slaughter Devil Sovereign who survived for some unknown reason despite them giving their all to exterminate him, left behind a mysterious black jade. That black jade was unknown even to Jasmine and had no reaction whatsoever to any aura or when ascertaining it. But it gave off a strange reaction when Xianxia came near it and would release strange inscriptions that floated in midair. While Xianxia had never seen those strange inscriptions before, she was able to read without difficulty. The name that she read out was World-Defying Heaven Manual. What was going on? Was the part of the World-Defying Heaven Manual that I had obtained from the Moon's Slaughter Devil Sovereign by chance really the ancestral divine art? Qianye suddenly raised his head and asked, Slave Ying, did you manage to decipher the World-Defying Heaven Manual? Qianye Ying'er shook her head without hesitation. No. Only the 4 creation gods and 4 devil emperors would be able to understand the world-defying heaven manual that was engraved with the divine text of absolute beginning. No other god or devil would be able to understand, let alone the beings of this era. The divine text of absolute beginning can only be understood by the devil emperors and creation gods. Then why was Xianxia able to? What was even stranger was that she herself had never seen that kind of language before, and yet she could understand it in one glance. Qianye's brows knitted tightly as his soul was in turmoil and it turned chaotic. I have exhausted all means to find all sorts of ancient records and many wise men who have researched antiques. Yet only the 4 words, 9 profound, exquisite body, could be interpreted with much difficulty. This matter had even been secretly leaked out, and it attracted some guesses and rumors that I was not willing to listen to. Yunqi sucked in a deep breath and cast a sideways glance. This was the reason you made a move on Qingyue? Yes, Qianye Ying'er replied. HMPH? She did not understand anything and could not even read the inscription. It was just a fragment, and yet you still made a move on Qingyue. You're truly a madwoman. Qianye Ying'er serenely replied, This is my pursuit of the profound way and my life's creed. Yunqi snorted coldly and said, The piece of the world-defying heaven manual you obtained is now with your royal father, isn't it? Even if he thought about it with the tips of his toes, he would have also known that she would definitely leave such an important item with someone she trusted the most when she still had her consciousness, before going to the moon god realm. If the world-defying heaven manual was truly the ancestral divine art, it would be something that would incomparably majestic and valuable in the eyes of the creation gods and devil emperors. But he was instantly stupefied when Qianye Ying'er said, No, I did not pass the piece of the world-defying heaven manual to anyone. It is currently with me. Yunqi stared straight ahead for a few breaths, stood up after a while, and stretched his hand out. Let me have a look. Yes. No matter how important it was, even if it were a taboo item, Qianye Ying'er would never disobey his orders. Under the fervent gaze of Yunqi, Qianye Ying'er stretched out her hand as a grayish-white squared stone slab appeared in her palm. That stone slab had no spiritual energy whatsoever and looked like an extremely ordinary stone. It was square-shaped, and its surface was filled with holes of different sizes, and that was all to it. This is the piece of the world-defying heaven manual that you obtained. Yunqi found it a little hard to believe. Qianye Ying'er flipped her palm. An array of golden light flashed as a thread of extremely tyrannical Brahma monarch, divine power soundlessly poured into the stone slab. In a split second, the grayish-white stone slab flashed an intense silver brilliance. That silver brilliance only lasted for an instant, and it suddenly exploded before it scattered and disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, Yunqi had a sudden sensation. He lifted his head abruptly, and his line of sight froze for a long time. Right above Qianye Ying'er, a large luminous silver brilliance extended out swiftly before slowing down, scattering and twisting. It lasted until it took the form of a few hundred strange shapes which were different in form but similar in size. It was obviously rows of strangely shaped characters. These strange silver characters were incomparably clear under the reflection of the grayish-white skies. When seen from above, the gray skies seemed to disappear. Other than those strange characters, no other colors could be seen in his line of sight. He stared at those strange characters for a very, very long time. The method used to make the strange characters appear was exactly the same as the method used for that mysterious black jade. Although he did not understand a single one of those strange characters, when he compared them to the words projected by that mysterious black jade, he had a clear and intense feeling that they actually shared a common origin. This was the fragment of the world-defying heaven manual that Qianye Ying'er obtained, and it was also a piece of the ancestral divine art. Then, that piece of mysterious black jade was truly also a piece of the ancestral divine art. If everything was true, the fragment in Qianye's hand belonged to Mo-Yi since Jia Yuan had a piece, then the one he obtained was the third and final piece. Why was the ancestral divine art, which was a divine item of divine items with the moon-slaughtered devil sovereign? He seemed to hold a high position in the devil race, though it would definitely not be that of the level of a devil emperor. Also, the fact that he could escape the apocalyptic calamity was already incomparably strange. Could it be that it was related to this matter? Countless thoughts flashed across Yunqi's mind, and the thing that they could not explain was undoubtedly, why was Lingxi able to understand the ancestral divine art? I want this. Yunqi stretched his arm out, grasped the stone slab, and took it. Yes. Qianye Ying'er did not protest in the least and suggested, if Master wants to read it, perhaps you could ask the heaven-smiting devil emperor for help. She is the only living being in the whole universe who is able to understand the divine text of absolute beginning. I see. Yunqi gave a half-hearted smile and said, So this is the reason why you brought it along. Qianye Ying'er. In this world, the only ones who knew that he possessed another piece of the world-defying heaven manual were him and Xiao Lingxi, and the Ice Phoenix divine being who had read his memories. but from the Ice Phoenix divine being's reaction and account, it was clear that even she had not known that the world-defying heaven manual was the ancestral divine art. Other than that, from the divine art that Xiao Lingxi had deciphered, that mysterious black jade should be the first part of the world-defying heaven manual. The world-defying heaven manual. It was the ancestral divine art left behind by the ancestral god. So if he could cultivate it, did that mean that he could truly defy the world? These thoughts chaotically jumbled about in Yuan Qi's head, but he very quickly threw them aside. The Sky Poison Pearl was still releasing its cleansing aura at an extreme rate, but Jasmine's figure and aura had not appeared at all. Slave Ying, I have a question that I have always been very curious about. How did you find out about the relationship between Jasmine and I in the first place? And how did you know that I possessed the heretic god's legacy? As he waited, Yuan Qi asked Qianye Ying'er a question. Qianye Ying'er replied, I found out from the heavenly slaughter star god herself. It was something that she had said to the heavenly wolf star god herself. Yuan Qi's eyebrows greatly furrowed as he exclaimed, Jasmine's spiritual perception is publicly acknowledged as unrivaled in the god realm, so how could you actually eavesdrop on her? Qianye Ying'er replied calmly. Her emotions had been thrown into complete chaos after she saw you at that time. Also, I can turn invisible just like Master, and because I was very close to her, my spiritual perception passed through the sound isolation barrier she had erected without her noticing. Turn invisible. You can turn invisible. This revelation mildly shocked Yuan Qi. To his knowledge, the only one who had successfully cultivated invisibility in this world was him alone. Perhaps Master had also possibly accomplished it, but she had never shown it to him. He had never heard that there existed other profound movement skills that would allow a person turn invisible. He had even thought that this might perhaps be a divine technique that was unique to the Ice Phoenix bloodlines, moon-splitting cascade. Furthermore, out of all the rumors concerning Qianye Ying'er, there were none that mentioned that she could turn invisible. Under Yuan Qi's shocked gaze, before he had even seen Qianye Ying'er move, a faint and imperceptible light flashed across Qianye Ying'er's golden mask as her long and willowy body twirled around lightly. As the light quickly dimmed, in the instant that her body made a full turn, she had vanished into thin air and she had not even left behind a trace of her aura. Yuan Qi. Half a breath later, Qianye Ying'er's body instantly appeared again, and she assumed her previous stance again as she stood there. This is the core profound movement skill of my Brahma monarch god realm, great splendorous Brahma shadow. In the 900,000 years since the grand ancestor passed, I am the only one to cultivate it to the extreme realm of invisibility, Qianye Ying'er said in a slow and unhurried manner. As a result, Master isn't the first person in the world who can turn invisible, he is the second. Yuan Qi was left speechless for a very long time. He vaguely sensed that he was the first person outside of the Brahma monarch god realm to find out about her ability to turn invisible. In the 900,000-year history since the Brahma monarch grand ancestor, she was the only person who had cultivated invisibility. Qianye Ying'er's innate talent and power of comprehension was, without a doubt, incomparably strong. At the same time, she had hidden it extremely well, and it had never been exposed to anyone before. As such, over the years, he wondered just how many of the god realm's big shots Qianye Ying'er had spied on while they were unaware. He was even less aware of just how many secrets and hidden cards she still possessed that no one else knew about. Let me ask you another question. About 9 years ago, your Brahma monarch god realm suddenly entrapped and slaughtered the wood spirit race, driving the wood spirit patriarch and his wife to their deaths. Who was the perpetrator behind these actions? He Ling. Qianye Ying'er did not immediately answer the question, and she looked as if she was thinking about something. After that, she gave a quick answer. I do not know what Master is speaking of. You don't know? I do not know, Qianye Ying'er said without a trace of hesitation. If it truly involved the wood spirit royal family, then perhaps it was something that was done privately by a Brahma king or a Brahma monarch divine envoy. Yuan Qi actually did believe that this matter had nothing to do with Qianye Ying'er. Otherwise, if she had truly been involved, then given her power, He Ling and He Lin would never have been able to escape. Since that is the case, Yuan Qi said in a deep voice, the next time you return to the Brahma monarch god realm, you need to investigate this matter thoroughly. I need to know precisely who those people are. Understood, Qianye Ying'er accepted the order. Master, there's no need to be too anxious about this matter right now, He Ling said in a soft voice. The sky poison power has just been exhausted, and it will still require some time to recover to the point where it can be used again. You want to avenge yourself, right? Yun-Chi said. Amen. He-Ling let out a very soft sound, but it was filled with a determination that made one's heart palpitate. Don't worry, Yun-Chi gently comforted her. That day will definitely come. Time flowed slowly. An entire day passed by and Qianye Ying'er had soundlessly killed an indeterminate number of wild beasts that had stealthily approached them, but Jasmine still had not made an appearance. Master, will she really come? Healing asked. She definitely will, she's definitely nearby, so she can definitely sense it, Yun-Chi repeated again as he stared into the distance. 2 days passed, 3 days passed. Yun-Chi had stayed at the peak of the god realm of absolute beginning throughout, and he had not taken a single step away from it. The sky poison pearl also kept releasing that dark green cleansing light. However, 3 days had passed and Jasmine still had not appeared. Master, do we still continue to wait? Healing asked weakly. Yun-Chi lowered his head, but he did not reply. These few days of fruitless waiting had helped him gradually realize something amidst the silence. Finally, he stood up and looked in front, his hands slowly balling into fists. After that, he suddenly roared with all of his might. Jasmine, I know that you're here, I know that you're already here. Come out, hurry up and come out. Qianye Ying'er glanced to the side. She had not sensed anyone's aura drawing near to them. Master, Healing also gasped in surprise. I'm still alive, you're also still alive. Yun-Chi briefly raised his head as he yelled with all of his might. I not only managed to survive, I also no longer need to be as wary and apprehensive as I was back then. I even managed to plant a slave imprint on Qianye, the person we feared the most back then. So why are you deliberately avoiding me? In this world, no one else can find you except for me, because I know that you can definitely sense my arrival, and I also know that you are definitely by my side right now. No matter what you've become, you will always be my Jasmine, and this is something that will never change. If you are deliberately playing a game of hide and seek with me, you've played long enough now. If you are furious that I took such a long time to find you despite clearly being alive, then, could you please come out and punish me however you wish? In this barren and desolate world, Yun-Chi's voice rang off into the far distance. Yet he did not get a single reply. Yun-Chi closed his eyes and heavily gasped for breath. After that, he suddenly said, Slave Ying, retreat 25 kilometers. After that, no matter what happens here, you are not to approach, remember, seal your sense of hearing. Yes, Qianye Ying'er accepted her orders and left. After that, Yun-Chi opened his eyes, but the light in those eyes had dimmed a little. He no longer shouted. Instead, he muttered to himself in a very soft voice, Jasmine, when I lost my life back then, the words that you said to me are words that I will never ever forget for as long as I live. Right now, I am perfectly alive, yet you want to be so distant from me. Could it be you will only be willing to see me if I'm dead? As he muttered those words, he raised his arm. After that, profound energy suddenly flared up around that arm before he fiercely smashed it against his own chest. Boom! The space around him lightly vibrated, and it was as if a mountain had been struck. The power of this blow was incomparably vicious and merciless. It caused Yun-Chi's chest to sink in dramatically as an arrow of blood violently shot out of his mouth, and his eyes went dull for a fraction of a second. Ah, Master! Healing shouted in shock, her astonished face immediately going deathly pale. What are you doing? Yun-Chi's body bent over and as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He then moved his palm away from his chest. Profound energy that had turned chaotic once again condensed in the center of his palm. It was now much more violent and merciless than before. He softly whispered, Jasmine, if I have to be on the border between life and death before you are willing to see me, then I am willing to die again. As his voice fell, his palm once again fiercely smashed towards his chest. Master, don't! Healing's alarmed cry resounded in the sea of Yun-Chi's heart. However, the terrifying sound of energy exploding did not ring out after it. A small pale white hand suddenly stretched out from out of nowhere and grabbed Yun-Chi's finger, stripping away all of the profound energy within. This froze Yun-Chi's movements while also locking his eyes in place. She was dressed in red robes the color of blood, and that was the color she loved the most. However, her long hair was no longer scarlet. Instead, it was now a pitch-black color that was even darker than night. Her eyes were previously the most beautiful stars Yun-Chi had seen in his entire life. But now they had lost that dangerous and mysterious bloody color, and had instead transformed into a boundless pitch-black abyss. She had lost her bright and beautiful blood-colored hair and eyes. But to Yun Qi, her face, her existence was something that he had long ago become intimately familiar with, down to every bit of blood and bone that she had. When the gazes of the two people met, it was as if time had frozen for a second. They were unable to think, unable to talk. It seemed as if she wanted to be cold and distant, but the pitch-black pupils of her eyes were trembling uncontrollably. Finally, the small hand she had used to grasp Yun Qi's finger began to pull back slightly. But in the next instant, Yun Qi fiercely grabbed that hand instead. After that, he pulled her into his chest, smothering her in a tight embrace. "Jasmine!" Yun Qi used all of the strength in his body to hug her, and it was as if he hated that he could not push her into his own body. His heart beat wildly as his blood surged and his soul shook. Finally, he felt that peace and satisfaction that only Jasmine could bring him. "I finally found you." Jasmine's frail and delicate shoulders were lightly trembling. At this very moment, she, a person so terrifying that she had cast a thick and heavy dark shadow over the entire god realm, had lost all ability to resist. She had wanted to speak in an icy cold voice, but the moment she opened her mouth, it became a soft and gentle whimper instead. "You, big idiot." Yun Qi laughed, and even the salty blood in his mouth made him feel a little intoxicated. "It's been so many years since I've heard you call me an idiot. I felt as if my life was missing something. Jasmine, especially the last few years, I thought that I had lost you forever. After that, I learned that you were still alive, and now I've finally found you once again. There is no better gift in this world than this feeling of finding something you've lost," Yun Qi whispered softly in her ear. Jasmine closed her eyes for a long time. After that, she suddenly stretched out a hand as she struggled to break free from Yun Qi's grasp and push him away. But her other hand was firmly caught in Yun Qi's own, and after 2 more attempts to pull back her hand, she actually had not struggled free. She turned around and faced the barren and desolate gray world as she coldly said, "Since you've already fulfilled your wish of meeting me, then you should go back." Yun Qi was not shocked or stunned by those words. Instead, he firmly held onto that tiny and lightly clenched hand and said, "Do you still remember what you told me 3 years ago?" Jasmine lightly bit down on her bottom lip. "You said if there is a next life, no matter whether I am man or demon, plant or beast, you would still definitely find me. Right now, I'm standing right in front of you, so why do you want to run away?" Jasmine's lips faintly quivered, and it was a long time before she finally spoke in a cold and heartless voice. "Because I am no longer Jasmine. The one standing in front of you right now is the evil infant." "No," Yun Qi gently said as he looked at her. "Actually, I know the reason. Jasmine, you changed a long time ago. It's just that I had never truly noticed it. Do you still remember the words you told me when we first met? You said that you were the blood-soaked Jasmine, that you had killed a countless number of people, and had been dyed in a countless amount of blood. Moreover, you said that you had countless more people that you needed to kill. Moreover, at that time, whenever you inadvertently released your killing intent, it always filled me with shock and fear. After I came to the god realm, I also heard that after you became the heavenly slaughter star god, you massacred a subordinate star realm of the moon god realm in order to vent your hatred, and you killed hundreds of thousands of people in the span of a single night. Jasmine. However, the heavenly slaughter star god who returned to the god realm later, who was clearly even stronger than before, no longer released her killing intent and hatred against the innocent. After that, you were cheated and hurt by your own father. You were abandoned to be a sacrifice by the star god realm, and because of my death, you awakened the evil infant inside your body. You, someone who had suffered so much hurt and betrayal, was more than entitled to hate the world and vent all of your hatred and resentment. However, you did not do so. You clearly had the power to overwhelm everything, but during these 3 years, you didn't make a single appearance, and it seems like you also haven't killed a single person. At the beginning, you had battled 4 king realms without fear, killing the moon god emperor and severely injuring the other 3 god emperors. So why did you suddenly escape after that and choose to go into hiding? Furthermore, you did not use the evil infant's power to cause any disaster because of your hatred and resentment. It was because, at that time, you thought that I was dead. But after that, you recalled that I possessed the flame of nirvana that was given to me by the phoenix spirit, and you knew that I would be resurrected. That was the only reason. Jasmine's eyes shook, but she did not turn her head back and she did not speak. My Jasmine has changed. A faint smile appeared on Yun Qi's face as he softly said, She is no longer that heavenly slaughter star god that was filled with killing intent and hatred, that heavenly slaughter star god who viewed all living beings as nothing more than grass. Instead, you become kind and hesitant and even a little lost and weak. However, all of these are not changes in your temperament. Rather, they were changes that you forced, impulses that you curbed with extreme effort, all because of me. You put me above all of your resentment, hatred, and killing intent. Subconsciously, you were afraid that the blood on your hands would affect me, because you knew that no matter what you did, I would definitely shoulder it with you. When they had met all those years ago, Jasmine had been filled with resentment, hatred, and killing intent. Hatred because of her mother, hatred because of her brother, and hatred from nearly being poisoned to death. When she had just become the heavenly slaughter star god, she had not been able to kill Yue Wuya or Qianye Ying'er, but she had fearlessly and mercilessly vented her hatred on the subordinate star realms of the moon god realm and the Brahma monarch god realm. She had been soaked with a countless amount of blood and had caused endless terror, casting countless dark shadows. But after she had spent those 8 years with Yun Qi, the Jasmine who had returned to the star god realm no longer attacked those subordinate realms. She had sworn to kill Yue Wuya and Qianye Ying'er, but she would no longer vent her hatred on the innocent people related to them. As the star god crowned with the 2 words, heavenly slaughter, she was originally the most apathetic and bloodthirsty of the 12, yet she had become kind. Because at that time, slaughter and revenge were no longer the most important things in her life. After that, the evil infant inside of her had awakened, and she possessed a power so strong that it terrified even her. It was then that she also had the ability and qualifications to take revenge, because she now had power that was stronger than anything she had ever dreamed of. She could kill Qianye, kill Southern Sea, annihilate all the star gods. But during these 3 years, despite having such power, she, who also had to deal with her negative emotions which had been completely agitated, had not made a single appearance. That was because she was afraid that she would be unable to control her own power and emotions, and would end up creating a huge disaster in the god realm. And what she was afraid of was not the disaster itself or the consequences she would suffer because of it. It was because she knew that no matter what she did, Yun Qi would definitely shoulder it with her. Just as Yun Qi had said before she knew it, Yun Qi's existence in Jasmine's subconscious had already surpassed. One could even say that it had far surpassed her hatred, and it had even surpassed her own desires and thoughts, whether she acknowledged it or not. This was especially because of the scene that had played out in front of her back then. The scene of Yun Qi rushing all the way to the star god realm by himself and dying in front of her. This made it so that she could no longer accept or tolerate seeing Yun Qi suffer any harm, especially the harm that she herself had brought to him. As the star god with the title of heavenly slaughter, Jasmine, who bore the power of the most evil infant, had chosen to lay low instead. Jasmine's changes had all happened in an imperceptible fashion. Back then, all of the great king realms from the eastern, western, and southern divine regions had mobilized in full force. The dragon monarch himself had assumed leadership of this task force, and they had not even hesitated to order the upper, middle, and lower star realms to find Jasmine at all costs, and within the shortest amount of time possible. This was because they were afraid that the moment Jasmine's power had recovered and her injuries had healed, the god realm would definitely be met with a great calamity. However, for an entire 3 years, they had not managed to find Jasmine, and the outcome that they had most feared had not happened. Even when Xia Qingyue was telling him that the evil infant had not appeared in 3 years, she was clearly rather puzzled and suspicious about the whole affair. During these 3 days, Jasmine had not appeared at all. Yun Qi had also sat there quietly for 3 days. As he recalled everything that he and Jasmine had been through, he inadvertently realized many things that he had been ignorant of, including the reason for why she had not been willing to appear. Jasmine bit down on her lower lip even harder, but she stubbornly refused to turn around or turn her head towards him. Right now, everyone calls you the evil infant, and all of them fear you, that's fine, Yun Qi said as he shook his head with force, his 5 fingers tightly entwining around her own. Your strength, your appearance, your name, your temperament, it's fine even if all of these things have changed. In my world, you will forever be the Jasmine that is most important to me, the Jasmine that I can least afford to lose no matter what happens. This is something that will never change. Jasmine turned her face to the side as she gritted her teeth lightly. After that, she finally spoke in a soft and trembling voice. You don't understand what the evil infant means exactly. You don't understand that if you are close to me, you will also become a heretic that the world will not tolerate. No, I do understand. But no matter how the world looks at you, why does it even matter to us? Yuan-Chi softly said as he stretched out another hand. If possessing darkness profound energy means that you are a devil, then I am a devil as well. Furthermore, you were the first person in the world to know I was a devil, but you never loathed me for it. It's not the same, Jasmine said as she shook her head. The power of the evil infant is the pinnacle of all negative powers. It is the ultimate darkness profound power, and it has truly brought an end to an era before. It is also the biggest reason why the current world fears and rejects darkness profound energy. Currently, the evil infant has re-emerged in the world, and as long as I exist, they will definitely never be able to rest easy. I am not avoiding you. Rather, without even bringing up the fact that I now hold the evil infant's power. Even if I had completely lost my mind and had become an utter demon, you would still definitely come and find me. But given your current state of affairs, as I am right now, it's not suitable for me to be by your side. Otherwise, your title as the God-Child Messiah would be dragged through the mud because of this. It was clear that even though Jasmine had been inside the God realm of absolute beginning all this while, she had secretly gathered a lot of information. After the power of evil infant had awakened, the evil infant spirit slowly began to recover its memories. So she knew many of these ancient truths even before Yuan-Chi had, and she knew even many more of these ancient truths than he did. I'm not afraid and I don't care either, Yuan-Chi said without any hesitation. My Jasmine is so clever that she will definitely understand one thing. I would rather make an enemy of the entire world than for you to hide from me forever. Do you truly have the heart to make me go through such cruel torture? You need to care, Jasmine said as she strove to harden her voice. The current prestige and status you have in the God realm is not something that is easily obtained. Furthermore, all of this must also have been due to the hard work of many other people. Moreover, your current status and future definitely does not concern you alone. Don't forget your women and your family. Don't tell me that you want to twist up all of these things just for my sake alone, Yuan-Chi. When we first met all those years ago, you were only 16. At that time, you were still a child, so you could be willful. But now, no matter what it concerns, you need to make the most rational decisions at all times, especially since you have already acted willfully once for me 3 years ago, and that's already enough. It's enough for 10 lifetimes. You definitely aren't allowed to ever be willful for my sake again. If not, I'd rather die in this place and make it so that you can never see me again. Jasmine's shoulders were lightly trembling, and they did not stop trembling for a very long time. She was not running away from Yuan-Chi. She was running away from the harm that she had done to Yuan-Chi's life. She, someone who had previously been cold-blooded and merciless, who had previously feared nothing, had instead become cowardly after she had received an even greater power. Jasmine, Yuan-Chi said softly, I understand everything you just said. However, I also know that things are actually not as absolute and pessimistic as you have made them out to be. Because right now, the true rulers of the primal chaos are no longer the various great king realms. The true ruler is the heaven-smiting devil emperor, a devil. When they faced the returned heaven-smiting devil emperor, all of them bent their heads and bowed. They did not even dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect, much less any loathing or resistance. That is because they were well aware that it was not possible to resist the heaven-smiting devil emperor at all, so the only choice they had was to serve, Jasmine said as she closed her eyes. How can I be compared with the heaven-smiting devil emperor? Then, what if the heaven-smiting devil emperor allows your existence? When he said those words, Yuan-Chi wore a smile on his face. He said with extreme confidence, then they will also naturally have no choice but to accept it obediently. No one will have any objections. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations was originally an artifact that belonged to the devil race in the past, so there shouldn't be any reason for the heaven-smiting devil emperor to not tolerate you. Furthermore, before Yuan-Chi could even finish speaking, a high-pitched voice suddenly rang in his ears. HMPH, Master was absolutely right, you really are a big dummy. Yuan-Chi's voice came to an abrupt halt as his eyes swiftly swept across the surrounding area. Who is talking? A cluster of dense black light suddenly started congealing beside Jasmine at this moment. An incomparably tiny and delicate silhouette lay within that black light. It was roughly only 2 feet long, but it was simply too blurry and it could not be clearly seen. The only thing Yuan-Chi could clearly see was a pair of long and narrow eyes that looked as deep as an abyss. Right now, the person Master is most worried about is the heaven-smiting devil emperor, you big dummy. Yunqi stared blankly at the blurry silhouette inside the black light as he remained stunned for a good long while. The voice in his ears sounded as tender and high-pitched as an infant's, and it also seemed to possess the innocence only a baby would have. "Who said you could come out?" Jasmine finally turned around, her brows sinking slightly. "Wu, Master is being fierce to me again," that tender voice said in a rather aggrieved manner. Yunqi finally managed to come to his senses as he said with a look of disbelief on his face, "Could it be that?" "It is the evil infant," Jasmine said. Jasmine's reply caused the look of disbelief on Yunqi's face to deepen even further. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, the ultimate negative force in this universe, the apocalyptic devil wheel that ended an entire era. Anyone would have imagined that its artifact spirit would be incomparably fiendish, terrifying, and cruel. But Jasmine had just said that this figure that had suddenly appeared was the evil infant, and even though its aura was strange, it did not give off a fiendish feeling at all. Moreover, its voice, no matter whether it was its words or tone, did not cause him to feel any sense of oppression or terror. Rather, it actually sounded kinda cute. "Let me tell you something." The evil infant seemed a little indignant and said, "Those who feared me weren't just the god race, even the devil race feared me greatly back in those years. They have always used their greatest power to seal me away." Yunqi opened his mouth and said subconsciously, "They were right to fear you. After you were released, you completely massacred both the god and devil races. That was the punishment that they deserved." Yunqi's words seemed to have angered the evil infant. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws under the black light. "I too am a heavenly profound treasure, but everyone longed for and desired the ancestral sword. As for me, the god race feared me. Even the devil race whose powers originated from the same source as me also feared me and sealed me off for a few million years. A few tens of millions of years. I was trapped in a lonely, dark, and gloomy cage forever. If it were you, would you not get angry and would you not want to punish them after regaining your freedom?" Yunqi was momentarily stumped for words. "Also, I only punished the god race and devil race, but did not harm any mortal souls. The so-called world-destroying is simply slander that has been pushed onto me. Rather it was the fierce battle between the god race and devil race that implicated countless mortal souls. No one knows how many souls were buried or how many clans had been exterminated. They deserved to receive that kind of punishment. If I did not exterminate them, their battle would have continued, and no one knows how many innocent souls would have been killed and exterminated. Why did I end up to be the greatest villain? How hateful!" Yunqi had actually no words to refute the words of the evil infant. "Enough!" Jasmine frowned and said, "Go back." The evil infant did not listen to her words but continued to shout, "Even if Master gets angry, I have to say it. Back then, one of the powers which sealed me came from a devil emperor called Xia Yuan. She is so afraid of me, and if she knew of my existence, she would most probably seal both my master and I. There's also a possibility that after she is certain that I am no longer a threat, she would kill Master and forcefully claim me as her own. HMPH, those greedy, repulsive, evil people that once sealed me would surely do it. No matter what may possibly occur, you would, with the heaven-smiting devil emperor because of Master." "Shut up." Jasmine was thoroughly angered and shouted, "Go back now." "Boo-hoo." The evil infant stopped talking abruptly. It let out a sob and said with an extremely aggrieved voice, I'll be obedient, Master, please don't be angry." After it finished speaking, the black light went dim and disappeared along with the evil infant's voice. But the words that were spoken just now had severely struck Yunqi's soul. Be it the world-destroying that was uttered in anger, or the possibility that was mentioned later. "You're worried that I would break off with the heaven-smiting devil emperor because of you," Yunqi said, slightly baffled. The two words "break off" was perhaps not suitable to be used, because he completely did not have the qualifications to break off with the heaven-smiting devil emperor. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations would indeed most probably be the cause for Xia Yuan to fear greatly. If she had wanted to seal it then, she would also seal Jasmine without a doubt. If Xia Yuan wanted to take it away by force, Jasmine clearly could not break away from the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations willingly. Otherwise, she would have already chosen that option. So if she wanted to take it away by force, Xia Yuan would definitely have to kill Jasmine first. No matter which, no, such a thing would never happen, definitely not. "It's even better since you understand it," Jasmine said. "It's just as you said, the heaven-smiting devil emperor is the current true ruler of this era, and she is also your greatest backing. With her as your backing, you would be an uncrowned king. Even if you had planted the slave imprint on Qianye Ying'er, the Brahma monarch realm would not be able to do anything to you. But if you lose or even go against this backing, you would have to weigh the consequences yourself. If you persist on being willful, I will not allow that. Qianye thought for a short while and said, "Actually, I feel that your worries are perhaps unnecessary." Back then, when I had known about the truth of the impending return of the heaven-smiting devil emperor, I was incomparably nervous and terrified. But when I saw the heaven-smiting devil emperor in reality, it was completely different from what I had anticipated. Not only was she not cruel and violent, she was also unbelievably warm and benevolent. I had also sensed that she was not someone who was avaricious. In addition, because of the change in the aura of the primal chaos, the heavenly profound treasures in this era are completely different from when they were in the ancient era. Due to the laws of the current era, no matter how much the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations recovers, it will never be able to reach its original level. Even a true god may never reach their original level, and naturally, it would not be a threat to the heaven-smiting devil emperor. Thus, she would not have a reason to seal it once again or take it by force. Besides, it calls you master, so you are the one in charge. It won't even be able to cause trouble the next time. Jasmine, also, this may shock you after hearing it. Qianye said, Ying'er is actually the daughter of the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the heretic god. That sentence caused Jasmine to turn around abruptly, and in shock, she shouted involuntarily, "What?" Qianye did not explain immediately. He smiled slightly. "That's why you don't have to worry about things like breaking off with the heaven-smiting devil emperor. Moreover, she has admitted that she owes me a huge favor for saving Ying'er's life back then. Ying'er is her daughter with the heretic god." Jasmine softly mumbled repeatedly. Even the evil infant, who had many memories of an ancient time, did not know anything about this matter. "Also," Qianye continued on, "the god realm does not reject and exclude your existence to the extent that you think. For example, you should have known for a long time that Qingyue is the current god emperor of the moon god realm. When you killed Yue Wuya back then, I had thought that she would feel animosity towards you. But, on the contrary, she encouraged me to look for you and hoped that I would find you. She even reminded me that I am your best opportunity to be accepted by the universe." A complicated black light flashed in Jasmine's eyes, and she said indifferently, "She was not born in the god realm, and thus it's not strange for her to think that way." "My master also said the same thing," Qianye immediately said. "She said that you would be the one who would be willing to use all your strength to protect me." "Then what about the eternal heaven god emperor?" Jasmine asked instead suddenly. "He should be the person who approves of you the most currently. But at the same time, the eternal heaven god realm follows the morally right way strictly. They will never tolerate the existence of the evil infant, and they will not tolerate the current eastern divine region all the more. If they knew that you had associations with the evil infant, then the eternal heaven god realm will never treat you the same as they did before. Given the prestige that the eternal heaven god realm holds in the god realm, their attitude toward you is more important than you think it to be." Qianye did not refute or explain, neither did he say that he could hardly care about it, but he said suddenly, "Jasmine, let's make a bet, shall we? Jasmine, if I am able to get the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the eternal heaven god emperor to accept your existence, you will leave this place with me, and then use your powers to protect me." Jasmine parted her lips slightly. "If I fail temporarily, I will not force you to leave this place with me until I succeed, or if things take a turn for the better one day, all right." Jasmine glanced back at Qianye, and their eyes met. His eyes did not show any sort of disappointment, impatience, or gloom at her or the evil infant's words. Rather, they showed warmth and peace, as well as determination when he silently told her that he would never let her go. Her heart and soul, which had been plagued by loneliness and gloom over the past few years, had long ago melted away and been thrown into chaos under his gaze. There was clearly so much fear and apprehension in her heart, but at this moment, she was unable to recall any of it, nor was she able to summon any strength to reject him. "All right," she gazed at her own reflection in Qianye's eyes and gently nodded her head. "If you are really able to do that, I will leave this place with you. Henceforth, I will go wherever you go." She did not even mention the star god realm because it was undeserving for her to recall memories or be sad about it. "You said it yourself." Qianye's hand balled up unconsciously. Hong'er and even He Ling is able to bear witness. It's too late for you to back out now. Jasmine, He Ling. Ah, Jasmine gasped in realization as she was forcefully pulled into Yun Qi's arms. He held her tightly, and before she could even finish exhaling, her lips had already been gently sealed. A strong masculine scent lingered at her nose. Jasmine made a gentle squeak as her eyes had gone wide, and her mind had completely gone blank in an instant. In the first year they had met, Yun Qi had given her blood through mouth-to-mouth contact. But that was to save her life, and he had no other romantic thoughts. This moment was the first time that Yun Qi had kissed her for real. Jasmine's body turned stiff. The strange sensation on her lips made her heart beat extremely fast. She was rigid for a long while before she violently struggled free. She turned her face away and breathed raggedly. Yun Qi, don't forget, I am your master. You have not been for a long time now. Yun Qi smiled gently and immediately picked up her exquisite, delicate body. Catching her off guard, he once again planted a deep kiss on her lips. It was no longer a simple peck, having changed into one that was exceptionally wanton and aggressive. She was abandoned and sacrificed by the star god realm. The world could not tolerate her existence. Just as well, in this way, I can belong to him. I would be his and his alone, Jasmine subconsciously struggled. But that struggle became weaker and weaker, and gradually she closed her eyes quietly and tilted her slender neck upwards. Her delicate arms held Yun Qi tightly as her subconscious retreat unwittingly turned into a shaky response. A beautiful soft pink aura slowly radiated out from her body, and even the evil infant devilish energy that terrified all of creation had soundlessly disappeared. Brahma Monarch God Realm. Master, Miss followed Yun Qi to the God Realm of Absolute Beginning and has not returned for several days. Gu Zhu stood behind Qianye Fanchen with his back bent and spoke with a deep, hoarse voice. Oh, really? Qianye Fanchen replied casually, as if he was not too bothered by it. He had just been plotted against. He lost all his prestige, and Qianye Ying'er was forced to bear the slave imprint. If it were anyone else, they would be extremely furious. But Qianye Fanchen was incomparably calm and gentle, as if only a small and insignificant matter had just occurred. News of Yun Qi planting the slave imprint on Miss has spread to many great star realms within these few days. It seems that everyone even in the West and South God regions know about it. Gu Zhu's voice was obscure, and his gaze was exceptionally complicated. Even news of the eternal heaven god emperor as a witness has completely spread, Sai. HMPH, that's to be expected. Qianye Fanchen snorted indifferently. This king would find it strange if Xia Qingyue did not add fuel to the fire. Heh, the unapproachable Brahma monarch goddess, whose celestial beauty stood above the rest of the worlds, had actually become Yun Qi's slave. How ironic, what an earth-shattering joke. Xia Qingyue, who hated Qianye Ying'er to the core, racked her brains to force Qianye Ying'er into this situation. How could Xia Qingyue not humiliate her as she pleased and make her a laughingstock for the world to mock? The poison that Master was afflicted with has already been cleansed, and it has also been confirmed that other 8 Brahma kings are all in good health. In this case, it should not bring about any future problems, Gu Zhu said. Oh, Qianye Fanchen cast a slight sideways glance. We can undo the slave imprint on Miss now, Gu Zhu said slowly. When Miss was cultivating the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, her Brahma soul and true soul were fused together. When the slave imprint was exerted on her, it was planted on both her Brahma soul as well as her true soul. If the Brahma soul bell took back Mrs. Brahma soul by force, the slave imprint will break down and disperse. Currently, only Master and Miss have successfully cultivated the perfect fusion of the true soul and Brahma soul. No one in this universe is able to understand this, including the Moon God Emperor as well as the Eternal Heaven God Emperor. And this old servant had already imprisoned Mrs. Memory regarding this matter. Although this move would completely cripple Mrs. Brahma God Divine Power, it would only be a matter of time for Mrs. Complete recovery, given her innate comprehension. There's no rush. Qianye Fanchen smiled faintly instead. A day later would mean being humiliated for a day more. Did Ying'er pass you the stone slab that the world-defying heaven manual was engraved on? Qianye Fanchen asked. Gu Zhu said, how would this old servant have the qualifications to even touch such an important thing? Ha ha! Qianye Fanchen laughed as a strange light flashed in his eyes. This is indeed humiliating, but it could also be an opportunity. Does Miss wish to understand the world-defying heaven manual through Yun Qi? Gu Zhu's obscure voice seemed to contain a sigh. Ying'er has understood for a long time that she would never be able to comprehend the world-defying heaven manual as long as it was in her hands, Qianye Ying'er said. But now, the person who is able to understand the world-defying heaven manual has appeared, and that person is the heaven-smiting devil emperor. After Yuan Qi has obtained the world-defying heaven manual from Qianye Ying'er and found out that it is the primordial ancestral divine art, he will definitely look for the heaven-smiting devil emperor, because no one in this universe is able to resist the temptation of the ancestral divine art, not even the creation god, let alone Yuan Qi. If everything goes smoothly, Yuan Qi would not have to be on guard against an absolutely loyal Ying'er. Haha, Ying'er would perhaps gain something even if it were a tiny bit because this is the only chance she has. But you don't have to say anything anymore. Gu Zhu wanted to say something but was interrupted by Qianye Ying'er. This king has a clear idea of when to undo her slave imprint. You don't have to bring it up again. Gu Zhu bowed his head and did not say anything, but his pair of old eyes turned exceptionally troubled. Jasmine, just where exactly did you find the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations anyway? Yuan Qi finally asked that question. Jasmine bent her small, pale legs as she leaned against Yuan Qi's chest like a lazy cat before answering in a soft and wispy voice. The moon's slaughter devil nest. She was already unable to return to the star god realm, and there was no place in this world where she could call home. No, it should be said that when she was still in the blue pole star, Yuan Qi's side had been her best place to return to. Moon slaughter devil nest, Yuan Qi said with a shocked look on his face. As the memories of what happened at that time swiftly surged into his head, the astonishment on his face gradually transformed into realization as he muttered. Back then, when the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations had been released from its seal and had regained its freedom, it used the moon slaughter devil sovereign's body as a medium. No wonder the moon slaughter devil sovereign was actually able to live up to that point. No wonder the heretic god could only seal him and not kill him. Jasmine's answer completely dispersed the fog of mystery that surrounded the moon slaughter devil sovereign that year. In the ancient era, the moon slaughter devil sovereign's body was hijacked by the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, and he had become its living medium. As a result, he was able to survive even when all the other gods and devils had been wiped out. The heretic god discovered his existence, but he was unable to kill him, because the moon slaughter devil sovereign's life had already been entwined with the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. Even if it was an evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations that had exhausted all of its energy, the heretic god still could not destroy it. So he could only choose to seal the moon slaughter devil sovereign together with the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. After they had been sealed for a very long time, even the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations' power to hijack the moon slaughter devil sovereign had disappeared completely. The place where they had been sealed was precisely the moon slaughter devil nest, and only the surviving moon slaughter devil sovereign, the former king of the devil race's eternal night devil clan, and the dormant evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, that terrifying devil wheel which was also synonymous with the name world-destroying wheel, had actually been on the blue pole star all along, including the sky-poisoned pearl and the mirror of samsara. 3 of the 7 great heavenly profound treasures had actually been on the blue pole star, on a planet in the lower realms that basically no one in the god realm knew about, and even if they did come across it, they would not even bother to take a second look. Back then, the moon slaughter devil sovereign left behind a piece of black jade after he died. Do you still remember it? Jasmine asked. Yuan Qi nodded his head. I'm carrying it with me right now. Could it be that you already know what it is? That piece of black jade is actually the first part of the ancestral divine art left behind by the ancestral god. After Jasmine had finished speaking, she discovered that Yuan Qi had not violently reacted to her revelation. It looks like you already know what it is. Actually, I only found out not too long ago, Yuan Qi said. Before he had gone to the god realm, he discovered from Xiao Lingxi that a strange, world-defying heaven manual was engraved inside the black jade. But it was only 2 days ago that he found out from Qianye Ying'er that this world-defying heaven manual was actually the ancestral divine art. I also know that during the ancient era, there were 3 parts of the ancestral divine art. One lay in the hands of heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo Yi. Another lay in the hands of the heaven-smiting devil emperor. and the last had actually been in the hands of the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign, and that is actually quite mystifying. No, Jasmine said as she shook her head. That piece of blade jade is not something that belonged to the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign. Back then, he had been the king of the Eternal Night Devil clan, but he still did not have the qualifications to even touch the ancestral divine art. That piece of black jade was actually something that belonged to the evil infant. Eh? Yun Qi was taken aback by that revelation. According to the records, 2 of the 3 parts of the ancestral divine art lay in the hands of the god race, while the last one lay in the hands of the devil race. But in actuality, 2 of them had belonged to the devil race, and 1 of them had belonged to the god race. It's just that no one knew exactly where the first part of it was. In fact, the very first part of the ancestral divine art had been with the evil infant from the very beginning. The only reason it fell into the hands of the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign was because after the evil infant had hijacked him. This thing fell into his hands the moment it exhausted its power. However, the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign probably did not know what it was, and it was even less likely that he could read it. Moreover, even the evil infant, who knew that it was the first part of the ancestral divine art, was unable to read it. So the evil infant is also unable to read it? Yun Qi asked as his brows twitched. The ancestral divine art was transcribed using the divine text of absolute beginning. Other than the devil emperors and creation gods who inherited the fragments of the ancestor gods' memories, no other living creature will be able to decipher it, Jasmine said. Outside of the creation gods and devil emperors, is there truly no other possibility? Yun Qi asked in a somewhat dazed manner. To think that even the evil infant, this existence that was a step above the creation gods and devil emperors, would actually be unable to decipher the ancestral divine art. Amen, Jasmine gave a simple confirmation. She noticed Yun Qi's peculiar look and she slightly raised her eyes. Why did you ask such a question? Actually, Yun Qi's eyes looked a little dazzled, but after that, he shook his head once more as he said, It's not something important. Jasmine did not pursue the issue as she said, That piece of black jade is completely useless to you, but you can give it to the heaven-smiting devil emperor. If the heaven-smiting devil emperor is truly someone who does not want to owe anyone any favors, then she will definitely owe you a huge favor because of this. The reason why Jia Yuan could be ambushed all those years ago was because she had been lured in by Mo Yi's part of the ancestral divine art. So it was clear that she had an extremely deep desire for it. Amen, I understand, Yun Qi said as he nodded his head. He would indeed do that. He had 2 parts of the ancestral divine art, in addition to the part that lay in Jia Yuan's hand. So, the 2 pieces of the ancestral divine art that had fallen into his hands by chance gave Yun Qi a huge boost in his confidence for when he faced Jia Yuan, because this was undoubtedly a huge bargaining chip he could use when he was trying to persuade the heaven-smiting devil emperor to control the returning devil gods. In fact, this was possibly his biggest bargaining chip. At this time, Yun Qi suddenly thought of the star god wheel that Xing Jukong had given to him. He was just about to take it out, but his heart suddenly jolted, and he gave up on that idea after that. It would be better to not add any more burdens to Jasmine's heart and soul. Currently, she also definitely did not want to hear about anything regarding Xing Jukong. I heard that Qianye was also in the god realm of absolute beginning, and it seems like she has not left this place for the past few years. Yun Qi asked, Do you go and see her often? Jasmine's breathing came to a halt. It was only after a long time had passed that she only spoke in a soft voice. I do indeed visit her often, but she has never come out to meet me. Jasmine's reply was exactly as Yun Qi had expected it to be. Back then, I forced the 2 of you to get married. I did that so that she would still remember your existence after I died, so her heart would not be left without a home, causing her to fall into the abyss of hatred and resentment. But who would have imagined that I was still far too childish in the end? The change in circumstances back then was countless times worse than the worst scenario that Jasmine had imagined. Even she had greatly underestimated the limits of human depravity. After all, even though she always pretended to be mature and sophisticated in front of Yun Qi and Qianye, in the end, she still only had 20-odd years of experience. She had originally thought that after she had sacrificed her life to save Qianye would still have Yun Qi, and Yun Qi would still have Qianye. But it had resulted in both of them being tricked into becoming sacrifices by their own birth father and their fellow star gods, whom they shared the same sect and origin with. In the end, Yunqi died and Jasmine transformed into the evil infant, and Qianye had witnessed, endured, and experienced it all. The blow that she had received was so great that no one could imagine it. She was someone who had originally been downcast and gloomy because of the deaths of her birth mother, her maternal aunt, and her older brother, someone who was already teetering on the edge of the abyss. But now everything that had happened this time had completely and utterly pushed her into that abyss. She is in a very deep part of the God realm of absolute beginning, and she keeps going deeper and deeper, Jasmine softly said. Over the past few years, she has faced an uncountable number of primordial wild beasts, and she would suffer many injuries every single day in the past, under my strict rules. She had never stained her hands with blood or robbed anyone of their life. But now, when she comes into contact with showers of blood or the loss of life, she is so indifferent that it alarms me. Yunqi. Her heavenly wolf divine powers are also awakening at an inconceivable rate. Every time I go look for her, even if it's only 1 or 2 months later, her aura would be completely different. Big Brother was previously the strongest heavenly wolf star god, but the speed at which Qianye's heavenly wolf divine powers are growing is actually at least 10 times faster than Big Brother's. That incomparably terrifying compatibility Qianye had with the heavenly wolf divine power, and its incomparably terrifying speed of growth, had not made Jasmine the least bit happy. In fact, she only felt a deeper and deeper worry. "Let's go look for her together," Yunqi said. "Let her see that I'm still alive and well, and let her see that your heart and mind haven't been influenced in the slightest, that you are still that big sister who worries about and cares for her. She will definitely—" "No," Jasmine still rejected him. "The place where she is at is not a place that you can approach. Furthermore, there were a few times that I sensed that she had discovered my presence, but she did not call out to me or search for me. Instead, she always stayed far away from me." "Why?" Yunqi's brows greatly furrowed. "When she wants to see us, when she wants to leave this place, she will leave. Before that, let's not disturb or force her." Jasmine closed her eyes, her voice soft and coldly gloomy. At the same time, somewhere in the unknown depths in the God realm of absolute beginning, drip, a drop of cool water landed on an impish and tender face, a face that was lustrously white and flawless. The young girl opened her sleepy eyes, the petite body that had been curled up under an ancient tree sitting up as she raised her head to stare at the gray-colored sky. "It's raining," she whispered to herself, her half-lidded eyes still clouded by sleep. A cold wind blew past her, causing her multicolored skirt to flutter like a dancing rainbow butterfly. It was just that the world she was in, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers, the entire world around her, was a stretch of boundless, desolate gray, so she was the only bit of color in this gray and desolate world. However, this smear of color was dyed in boundless loneliness. Boom, 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 boom. The ground moved and the mountains shook as a towering, gigantic beast burst out from the ground. It rushed toward this rainbow-robed girl, who was clearly extremely pitiful and tiny, but was releasing an aura that made it uneasy. Its entire body was ash gray, and it blended perfectly with this world. Its body seemed to be made from limestone, and its roar contained a terrifying might that could annihilate stars. The young girl did not panic. Her eyes remained clouded and hazy, and in an instant, her body, a body that resembled a colorful butterfly, left behind an illusory, colorful afterimage as it flashed by. Boom! Her delicate, white, and tender hand that seemed to be formed from ice and snow touched the gigantic beast's chest, causing a towering image of a wolf that was even bigger than its own body to explode against its chest. Zzz, it was as if an azure arc of lightning had swept through the air. In an instant, the gray-colored sky suddenly split apart and an azure crack appeared, stretching until the end of one's sight to the limits of the sky itself. This was the space and sky within the God realm of absolute beginning, and it was many times tougher than the space and skies in the God realm. The roar of that towering beast stilled. Within the flashing image of the wolf, and under that sky that had been split apart, its enormous bulk froze in the air before suddenly exploding into countless fragments, causing a scarlet rain of blood that was even more terrifying than the most violent storm. Shaa, as the rain of blood drenched and dyed that girl's colorful robes, an extremely acrid and pungent stench crazily spread through the air. She stood amidst that crazy rain of blood without dodging or blocking it. Instead, she slowly stretched out her hand, looking at her fingers that had been stained the color of blood. The coldness in her eyes that looked as if they had stars embedded in them, was extremely shocking. "It's still not enough," Still not enough, she softly muttered. The bloody storm finally came to a stop, and the sounds of many wild beasts who had fled in terror could be heard in the distance. These dangerous existences of the god realm of absolute beginning, primordial wild beasts that everyone feared, felt a terror they had never felt before when they sensed this girl's aura. "Big sister, wait for me," she softly muttered in a voice that was so hazy that it sounded as if she was still sleeping. "Those people who bullied you, I will kill every single one of them, kill every single one of them, every single one of them. Every single one of them," as she muttered under her breath. Her hand slowly fell to her side, and a gloomy and deep blue light flashed through her eyes. It was just that this flash of blue light that represented the heavenly wolf divine power had lost its previous beauty and resplendence, and had gained a hint of incomparably frightening gloom. A gloom that symbolized darkness, profound energy. After he spent 5 days in the god realm of absolute beginning with Jasmine, Qianye finally left with great reluctance in his heart. During these past 5 days, Jasmine and Qianye had spent nearly every moment glued to one another. The relationship that they shared had always been exceptionally delicate. Without even talking about Jasmine's own feelings, even Qianye, who had many wives, had a hard time putting the special feelings he had for Jasmine into words. Ever since they had spent that 1 month together in the star god realm, that delicate feeling had continued to persist, and Jasmine had even shoved Qianye toward Qianye for the majority of that month. Today, without the chains that were the star god realm binding her, Jasmine, who was shunned by the rest of the world, no longer had anything to fear or worry about anymore. So she stuck herself to Qianye as much as she wanted to, whether it was as his lover or as a family member. Whatever was fine. In the past, she used to have unlimited contempt for those girls who were completely infatuated with Qianye, the ones who he had tricked using various, despicable, and underhanded means. But right now, she had already acknowledged that she herself was actually already one of those girls, and perhaps it had been that way for a long time already. As Qianye and Qianye Ying'er left, Jasmine watched him fade into the distance, and she continued silently looking in that direction for a very long time. "Qianye, back then I awakened the evil infant because of you. But I was also able to completely suppress that extremely terrifying hatred and desire to kill because of you as well. Just when exactly did you become such an important person in my life? So important that you far surpass the desire for vengeance that I once viewed as my very life itself." For her, Qianye had plucked a netherworld Udambara flower for her. Qianye had abandoned everything to make the long journey to the god realm for her. Qianye had been unwilling to fall on the conferred god state for her. Qianye had put his life on the line as he rushed towards the star god realm. Even though she had transformed into the evil infant who was feared by the world, Qianye's current situation left her with endless cheer. Of the 4 king realms in the eastern divine region, the moon god realm and eternal heaven god realm stood on Qianye's side. The star god realm could not afford to be bothered about him. And within the Brahma monarch god realm, the most dangerous Brahma monarch goddess had become his most loyal slave. In the snow song realm where he resided, he also had an inscrutably powerful master who was extremely protective of him. What's more, he was the one who had pacified the danger of the returned Devil Emperor, and he had also come under the protection of the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor. Even more than that, his fate with Hong'er had become even more tightly intertwined. Those upper star realms which knew the truth all rushed forward to curry favor with him. The current Qianye was no longer the same as he was back then, a person from the lower realms who had to tiptoe his way carefully around the god realm. All of these things combined with her own strength meant that even if Qianye was a cripple, his words would still carry an extremely heavy weight, and they would not be any less significant than the words from any god emperor. As long as the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor existed, unless he pushed someone to the point where their only option was to die together with him, no one would dare to offend him or harm him. He said very confidently that even with her status as the evil infant, she would still definitely be accepted by the world. And even if they could not accept her, as long as the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor said something, they would have no choice but to accept her. Everything seemed to be heading in the best possible direction, so Qianye no longer needed to grow anymore. "Qianye, you will definitely win that bet, right?" As she looked into the distance, Jasmine whispered those words to herself. Her lips unconsciously curved upwards as a dreamy haze settled over her eyes. "Master, where are we going now? Are we going to find the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor?" Ling asked after they had left the god realm of absolute beginning. The date for the return of the devil gods was gradually coming closer, and Yun Qi's reluctance to leave the god realm of absolute beginning had delayed him quite a bit as well. "Amen. We'll go back to the blue pole star. Let's go." He summoned out the vanishing moon celestial palace and pulled Qianye Ying'er inside the warship before he sped toward the blue pole star at full speed. In the past, the thing Yun Qi was most afraid of was exposing his place of birth. Because there were far too many eye-catching oddities about him and his body, it would undoubtedly arouse the god realm's curiosity about his place of birth, and this would very likely bring calamity down on that place. Thus, when he had been targeted by Qianye Ying'er in the god realm, it was impossible for him to go home, and he could only hole up in the forbidden land of Samsara. But now, the attention the rest of the world paid him far exceeded what it had been back then. So unless he never returned home, no matter how careful and cautious he tried to be, he would definitely end up exposing it one day. But the good thing was that there was no place that was safer than the blue pole star in this universe right now, and there was even less reason to fear that it would be coveted by others, because it was the first planet that the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor had created together. It was the greatest attachment the heaven-smiting devil emperor had to this world, so if anyone dared to touch the blue pole star, they were undoubtedly digging their own grave. Furthermore, all of the humans and other living creatures on the blue pole star were completely unaware just how special an existence their own planet was. They were also unable to perceive that they had received the greatest protection in this universe. In the future, even if the devil gods returned to the world and started causing calamities everywhere, even if countless planets, star realms, and star regions were destroyed, the blue pole star would still remain safe and sound. Moreover, if the origin of the blue pole star were to be revealed, this inferior planet in the lower realms, a planet that no one had even known about before, would become the most sacred and holy place in this universe in the span of a single night, and all living creatures would have to admire and worship it. The vanishing moon celestial palace's speed was exceedingly excellent. 3 days later, an azure planet that glowed with an abnormal radiance amidst the vast sea of stars appeared in his vision. Upon returning to the blue pole star, the vanishing moon celestial palace landed on top of the azure cloud continent's cloud's end cliff. Yun Qi instructed Qianye Ying'er to wait at the side of the cliff. After that, he leapt off the cloud's end cliff and dove straight to the bottom. World of darkness, sea of netherworld Yudambara flowers. It was probably because her soul was not complete, so Ying'er spent most of her time asleep. At this time, she was quietly sleeping in the midst of that sea of netherworld Yudambara flowers. However, unlike all the other times Yun Qi had visited, her small and delicate body was no longer tightly curled up like it had been before. Instead, she simply lay very comfortably on her side, and her sleep was exceptionally deep and peaceful, because Jia Yuan was quietly accompanying her now. Upon sensing Yun Qi's arrival, Jia Yuan soundlessly stood up and arrived in front of Yun Qi in a single instant. As she cast an arm backwards, she had already erected an absolute isolating barrier, as she was not willing to disturb the soundly sleeping Ying'er in any way. "You've finally come," Jia Yuan said with an expressionless face. "It was quite a bit later than I had expected. However, from the looks of it, you seem to have already found a good enough reason or bargaining chip." Yun Qi gave a rather awkward laugh, but after that he straightened out his expression and spoke in a frank and honest manner. "As someone who belongs to this current era and world, no matter whether it is for others or for myself, this junior is obligated to do so. So I request that senior be willing to spare this junior some time and listen to what this junior has to say." "Speak. I'll hear your reasons or about the bargaining chip that you have to offer me," Jia Yuan said without rejecting him. He did not know if he was mistaken, but Yun Qi felt that Jia Yuan's attitude seemed to be slightly different from before. Yun Qi exhaled lightly before speaking. "Senior is more clear than anyone else regarding what will happen when Senior's kinsmen return to the world. This junior is also deeply aware of why Senior would choose to let them run amok. And I am even more aware that the mortal creatures of this era have no right to make any requests of Senior or Senior's clansmen. However, in regards to Senior's clansmen, is allowing them to vent their hatred and resentment really the best way to treat them?" Jia Yuan did not react in any way. Fate can sometimes be very cruel and unjust, but it can also be incomparably beautiful at other times. For example, fate turned its back on Senior all those years ago, causing you to suffer a calamity that no ordinary person would be able to imagine. However, Senior did not despair because of this calamity. Instead, you returned safe and sound, and it was actually because of this calamity that you escaped the following calamity that engulfed the world and completely destroyed both the god and devil races. Furthermore, the daughter you had with the heretic god is still alive and safe in this world, so how can this not be recompense for what fate did to Senior? It's also the same for Senior's clansmen. They're returning to this universe filled with boundless hatred and resentment. But the people who harmed them all those years ago are no longer in this world, and all of the living creatures in this current era are innocent. If they do vent their hatred and resentment on these innocent mortal beings, not only will they be unable to truly vent their hatred, it will also end up increasing their sins and distorting their hearts and souls even more. Furthermore, it will cause this universe, a universe that they will rule over in the future, to collapse and descend into great chaos and turmoil. If we can suppress their hatred and resentment and pacify their hearts and souls, we can then divide the current primal chaos realm into 100 separate star regions that they will each take control of. After that, they can vie for supremacy with one another, and thus, they will have found a goal and objective that they can spend the rest of their lives pursuing. They might even end up being revered by all living creatures, enjoying a status and glory that they were unable to receive in the ancient era. The most important point is that, bit by bit, we can use this chance to finally completely change the perception the world has regarding devils and truly fulfill the greatest wish Senior and the heretic god had back then. If we can realize all of these things, then no matter whether it is for devil gods, the people of this universe, or even Senior herself, this outcome will be much, much better than simply allowing your clansmen to be utter demons possessed by hatred. When Yun-Chi spoke about how they could completely change the perception the world has regarding devils and truly fulfill the greatest wish Senior and the heretic god had back then, Jia Yuan's eyes flickered in a nearly imperceptible manner, but she had not had any other reactions during his speech. "Are you finished? HMPH, that was very well said." Even though Jia Yuan had praised him with her words, her face was not moved in the slightest. "It's a pity that you seem to have completely forgotten what I said to you last time." "This junior did not forget," Yun-Chi said calmly. "And this junior knows that it will be extremely hard to suppress the hatred and resentment that they have accumulated in their hearts over millions of years. However, Senior is their devil emperor, and it is also because of Senior that they could even survive until today and return to this world. This means that it isn't completely impossible for Senior to accomplish this, and Senior is the only person who can accomplish this as well, even if it's just an attempt." Yun-Chi paused for a bit before continuing. "This junior is aware that he has no right to make any requests of Senior, so as long as Senior is willing to even make the attempt, this junior will definitely repay Senior in some way. In other words, I will use that bargaining chip that Senior just spoke of." "Oh," Jia Yuan seemed to be very amused by that. "What bargaining chip? Tell me." "The ancestral divine art," Yun-Chi said in an extremely sincere manner. Jia Yuan glanced to the side as she gave him an indifferent look. After that, she asked, "Oh, really? So which part did you find? Was it the part that belonged to that old dog Mo-E, or was it the part that had never been seen in this world before?" Jia Yuan's reaction was so indifferent that it alarmed Yun-Chi. It was completely outside of his expectations. Countless thoughts immediately flashed through Yun-Chi's brain, but in the end, he still spoke up and said, "Both parts are in this junior's hands. In addition to the part that is in Senior's possession, Senior will be able to complete the legendary ancestral divine art." The complete ancestral divine art. If these words had been said in the ancient era, it would have been enough to cause world-shattering shockwaves to be sent through the entire universe. They were enough to cause all of the gods and devils, including the creation gods and the devil emperors, to go completely crazy. Yun-Chi had originally thought that these words would have a devastating impact on Jia Yuan. After all, it was the thing that she sought but could not obtain all those years ago. However, when he said those words, Jia Yuan's expression was actually completely unchanged. Her pitch-black eyes were like pools of gloomy and stagnant water, and not a single ripple could be seen in them. To think that you were actually able to find two parts consecutively in the amount of time you have existed. It looks like this world-defying heavenly manual, and you are quite fated. Jia Yuan uttered the name of the ancestral divine art in an incomparably cold and indifferent manner. Since that is the case, then you should just keep them and play with them by yourself. She had not even made any request to see them or showed any interest in looking at them, much less demanding them to be handed over to her. This outcome left Qianye utterly flabbergasted. Other than that, Xia Yuan continued, the part of the world-defying heavenly manual that I possessed back then is no longer on my person anymore. Qianye's eyebrows jumped at those words as he said, could it be that Senior threw it away outside the primal chaos? I did indeed throw it away. When Xia Yuan said those words, she wore a smile that did not seem like a smile on her face. The tone of her voice was exceptionally indifferent. It was as if she was merely talking about some small and insignificant matter that could not even catch her attention. Why? Qianye asked. Could it be that Senior currently no longer has any interest in the ancestral divine art? Xia Yuan gave a cold snort before she spoke in an apathetic manner. Back then, it was because of this world-defying heavenly manual that I got ambushed by that old dog Moe. It was also because of my curiosity and greed towards the world-defying heavenly manual that I went against Nixuan's warnings for the first time, and now I don't even have the chance to be reprimanded by him anymore. Qianye, one part of the world-defying heavenly manual in your possession comes from that old dog Moe. If I look at it, it will defile my eyes, and if I touch it, it will stain my hands. So just keep it for yourself, and don't even let me see it. Okay, Qianye said with complicated feelings. He had originally thought that the ancestral divine art in his possession would be the thing that would move Xia Yuan the most. But he had never imagined that not only did she not show any desire for it, her words had even shown a deep loathing towards it. But with that being said, as the only devil emperor that existed in this world, there was no power in this world that could threaten her in the slightest. So why would she want something like the ancestral divine art? Furthermore, the ancestral divine art was the biggest cause of the tragedy that befell her and her kinsmen, so if he thought about it carefully, it was not too surprising for her to have such a reaction. However, as a result of this, the only bargaining chip that he could bring to the table had now become completely and utterly useless. I don't mind telling you this, Xia Yuan suddenly said. I did indeed throw away my piece of the world-defying heaven manual, but I did not throw it outside of the primal chaos. After all, I was born because of the ancestral god, so how could I throw the greatest gift the ancestral god gave us outside the primal chaos? If you have any interest in this world-defying heaven manual, the corner of Xia Yuan's mouth twitched upwards as she said those words. It was as if she was giving him a cold or mocking smile, but Qianye could not describe the expression that she wore at the moment. There's no harm in trying to search for it. However, after all these years outside the primal chaos, I've come to understand one thing. This world-defying heaven manual is the origin of the profound way. The reason the ancestral god left it behind was because she did not want it to disappear, but it is also possible that she had left behind as a test for the future generations. So even if one could bring all the pieces together and completely comprehend it, there is basically nobody in this world that can cultivate it. Why does Senior think so? Qianye unwittingly asked. That is because the law contained within the world-defying heaven manual is a very special existence that is known as nothingness. All things and creatures in this universe were birthed from nothingness and ultimately return to nothingness. That was the only verse that I could comprehend from my piece of the world-defying heaven manual, but no matter how much I tried, the principles of nothingness contained within that verse was something I could not touch. Qianye, besides the ancestral god who was truly born from nothingness, it is impossible for any living creature to truly come into contact with the law of nothingness, and this includes both the devil emperors and the creation gods. As such, so what if we gather all the pieces of the world-defying heavenly manual? Heh, how ridiculous we were back then. Qianye remained quiet for a good long while before he finally asked, This junior understands. There's also something else this junior wants to discuss with Senior, and I hope that Senior can accommodate me. Is this about the evil infant? Xia Yuan asked in an indifferent voice. Qianye jerked his head upwards, his eyes wide and his mouth open. HMPH, haven't you been with her the last few days? At number %, nearly all the hairs on Qianye's body stood on end. This heaven-smiting devil emperor, was she a voyeur? Even though the corners of his eyebrows were wildly twitching, Xia Yuan's words put Qianye's apprehensive heart at ease. Since Senior knows about the existence of the evil infant and its current condition, that also means that Senior has no intention of sealing away the evil infant, correct? Seal away? Whatever for? Xia Yuan asked. And what exactly does the evil infant have to do with me now? These words left Yunqi stunned, and for a time, he found it rather hard to understand. Without even discussing the other gods and devils first, the heretic god himself had ultimately died because of the myriad tribulations, poison that had come from the evil infant. The evil infant has recognized a master. That is truly an interesting thing indeed. However, all of this has nothing to do with me. Jia Yuan's words contained a deep and special meaning that only she understood at this moment. There's no need for you to bring this to my attention again. Other than that, you are not to bring up the matter of my clansmen again. Any reasons, bargaining chips, or any other tricks that you think are useful or amusing, don't mention them to me again. I do not wish to hear a single word of it. Yunqi's lips quivered slightly, and it looked like he wanted to say something. But after that, he heard her speak in a deep and gloomy voice. Come and find me in this place a month from now. I will give you my answer then. Yes. Yunqi was unable to refuse. Moreover, from Jia Yuan's words, he vaguely sensed that she seemed to have come to a decision. Ooh! Within the sea of netherworld Udambara flowers, Yue slowly opened her four-colored eyes and stared blurrily in our direction. Jia Yuan glanced to the side, her gaze immediately becoming as gentle as a light breeze. She spoke in a low voice. Call Hong'er out. After that, go and accompany Yue and talk to her for a bit. Okay. He spent an entire day below Cloud's End Cliff, to the point that Hong'er had become so tired that she dove into Yunqi's body to lie down and sleep. It was only then that Yunqi was permitted to leave. Yunqi gently carried Hong'er and transferred her to the space within the sky poison pearl. His actions were exceptionally gentle, and his eyes carried a bit of the affection and tenderness that was usually reserved for his daughter. As she looked at him, Jia Yuan's gaze changed slightly, and she suddenly said, I used to be just like you. Oh, Yunqi raised his head, a puzzled expression on his face. As a devil emperor, I have destroyed an innumerable amount of living creatures. I did not feel anything even when I destroyed entire planets or races. However, after having a daughter and becoming a mother, I unknowingly became kind and compassionate. I even began to reject the act of killing altogether, because I did not wish to use hands which were stained with fresh blood to hug my daughter. Yunqi was stunned by those words. After having a daughter and becoming a mother, I felt that the world had become so much more beautiful than it had been before. After I had become kind, all the living creatures I observed seemed to have become kind and benevolent. My previous desire to kill, wariness, and resoluteness had all unknowingly and quietly faded away. Jia Yuan gave a soft sigh before continuing. This was also one of the reasons why I was so easily tricked and ambushed by Mo Yi even to this very day. I'm still not sure as to whether it is a strength or a flaw of my nature. Moreover, during the years I spent outside the primal chaos, I gradually started to realize that given my level and position, it was precisely because I had such a beautiful family that I needed to become even more ruthless and vicious. To use one's blood-stained hands to hug your family or to let them bleed. If you had to, what would you choose? Yunqi. Given the aura of the present primal chaos, you definitely must have spilled a lot of blood and experienced a lot of life-and-death situations to reach such a realm within a span of 30 years. The current you has the passive desire to pursue power, but you don't have the matching bloodlust or malice. Rather, you are filled with benevolent thoughts of saving the world. This may perhaps be a very good thing for someone else. But you are different, and you should also realize that you are different. You, the person who inherited Nixuan's power, are destined to be the ruler of this world. But a ruler must not only be respected, he must also be feared. You need to deliberately curb the softening of your heart and soul. And personally speaking, I would never want to see you, the person who has inherited his power, become the kind person that he was back then. Yunqi pondered those words for a moment before he nodded his head and said, MNN. This junior has carved senior's words into his mind. Oh, that's right. Jia Yuan's eyes slanted upwards as she suddenly said, the female slave that you have just taken isn't bad. Huh. Yunqi did not know why Jia Yuan would suddenly mention Qianye. Just based on her looks alone, she's even comparable to the so-called #1 sacred fairy of the god race, Li Xiu, back in her heyday. HMPH. Jia Yuan, who was always incomparably cold and indifferent, had clearly gnashed her teeth slightly when she mentioned the words, the so-called #1 sacred fairy of the god race, Li Xiu. After he took one look at Jia Yuan's expression, Yunqi asked in a rather anxious voice, Senior, seems to have some sort of grudge against creation goddess of life Li Xiu. Jia Yuan turned her face away before giving a heavy snort. She said in a cold voice, "Back then, when Xuan had still been young and foolish, he chased Li Xiu for a whole 1,000,000 years. Yet he kept getting cruelly rejected by Li Xiu time and time again. After that, he finally grew disheartened and left to go to the realm where the devil race resided, and it was only then that he met me." HMPH? What #1 sacred fairy of the god race? She was simply a stupid and clueless woman who could not see what was in front of her. In what way was Xuan not worthy of her? Senior, you're right, of course. Yun Qi lowered his head deeply, his face twitching slightly. As expected, no matter what level a woman was at, this was one point that remained completely the same. "It's a pity that Hong'er just had to receive her favor," Jia Yuan softly muttered to herself as she turned around. "You may leave, remember what I said. Come to this place to find me after a month has passed. During this time, you are not to disturb me." Yun Qi left, and the world of darkness beneath Cloud End's cliff once more became silent. Ever since Jia Yuan had arrived in this place, the roars of those giant beasts which used to resound incessantly in this place had completely ceased. Under Jia Yuan's faintly discernible darkness aura, those giant darkness beasts lived in a constant state of fear and trembling. Upon seeing that Ying'er had once again drifted off into a peaceful sleep, Jia Yuan stood amidst the sea of netherworld Udambara flowers. That pair of eyes which could terrify all of creation, overflowed with a deep sense of haziness and distress at this present moment. "Xuan," she softly muttered to herself, "why is it that I still can't get used to a world without you, even though so many years have already gone by? I was so strongly attached to life, so anxious to return. But the one thing I desired the most was not revenge. It was to see you and our daughter again. All of our clansmen, friends, enemies, and adversaries are no longer around, and the primal chaos has become incomparably foreign to me. But our daughter is still safe and sound, even though she went from being our Xuan Jai to being Hong'er and Ying'er. But at the very least, even though her existence had been severed, she has not lost anything. Hong'er is always so happy and carefree, and as long as someone accompanies Ying'er, she will be very content. Moreover, I have finally found a way to make her whole again, while also making sure that she will have someone by her side forever. Destiny destroyed everything but our daughter. So should I hate and resent destiny, or be grateful to it instead?" She closed her eyes as she muttered to herself as if she was in a dream. "Xuan, I know what you want me to do. But forgive me because I'm going to go against your wishes once again. Because this time I've found an even better choice." She raised her head up in a faint smile, a smile that no living creature would be able to believe if they saw it, lit up that face which was full of scars. "Xuan, wait for me. Once I have found the most suitable home for Ying'er, the home that she desires the most, I can finally see you again.